Chapter 3673. You just said, you found my clansman? Hu Xinyue was so shocked and excited that she stood up and stared at Ji Tianqing with burning eyes. Ji Tianqing just smiled and didn't answer. Hu Xinyue was stunned for a moment and then asked anxiously, say something. Let me ask you, is this true? Where's my clansman? How old is she now? Is she safe? Ji Tianqing chuckled and said, she is very young now. She is still at the peak of the Divine Monarch realm and is about to break through to the Divine King realm. However, she is now in the safest place in the world. You don't have to worry. Hu Xinyue heaved a sigh of relief and said with relief, that's good. Since she has reached the peak of the Divine Monarch realm and is about to break through to the Divine King realm, then she should be over 1,000 years old. If her aptitude is not so good, she is probably 2,000 or 3,000 years old. She is not young anymore. Speaking up to this point, she suddenly thought of an extremely important matter and immediately said anxiously, Long Tian, quickly bring me to see her. My clan's bloodline is special. She needs special methods and magical powers to break through to the Divine King realm. Without my guidance, I am afraid she will never be able to break through to the Divine King realm, and her lifespan will be damaged. As she said, Hu Xinyue rushed to Ji Tianqing. Ignoring her injuries, she wanted Ji Tianqing to take her to find her clansman. Seeing her like this, Ji Tianqing felt a little comforted and thought, no wonder Qianyue has been in seclusion for so many years and spent so many resources and treasures, but she still hasn't sensed the shackles. Breaking through to the Divine King realm is so far away. I have suspected that only the special cultivation methods and magical powers of the Heavenly Fox clan can help her break through to the Divine King realm. I didn't expect it to be so. It seems that I was wise to keep Hu Xinyue alive. With this thought in mind, he stretched out his hand and stopped the emotional Hu Xinyue. Hu Xinyue, don't be impatient. If I want you to see her, you can see her at any time. But before that, you still have to answer my question. If you see her, what will you do with her? Hu Xinyue could only suppress her excitement. She stared at Ji Tianqing with clear eyes and answered seriously, I will definitely keep her by my side and do my best to teach her and help her reach the Divine King realm. If she wishes to see the other clansmen or if she prefers to cultivate in peace, I will send her to Moon Awakening Divine Palace so that she can cultivate in peace. Ji Tianqing was quite satisfied with this answer. He nodded and asked, let me ask you again. Why were you so anxious when you learned about the Heavenly Fox bloodline? Have you been searching for the Heavenly Fox bloodline? Why are you looking for those heavenly foxes and gathering them together? Hu Xinyue frowned. After calming down, she said in a calm tone, that's right. For nearly 1,000 years, I have been traveling to various continents in search of the Heavenly Fox bloodline. However, my clan is a sinful clan that is not tolerated by the Heavenly Tao. Our bloodline is scarce to begin with, and it is extremely easy for us to die prematurely. That's why I've only found 2 heavenly foxes after searching the 4 seas and 5 continents for over 900 years. The reason I'm looking for my clansmen and nurturing them is to protect the continuation of the Heavenly Fox bloodline and not let it go extinct. More importantly, I want the Heavenly Fox clan to return to its peak and become the king of the Fox clan. My greatest wish is to make the Heavenly Fox clan prosperous to the extreme and have the right to ask the heavens, what have we done wrong? Why are we not tolerated by the Heavenly Tao? Hu Xinyue looked up at the sky and shouted these words in a sonorous and impassioned tone. His words were filled with hatred, unwillingness to submit. Ji Tianqing stared at her and raised his eyebrows. Well, that's a great dream. Unfortunately, my Qianyue only wants to be a salted fish. Goodbye. After he finished speaking, he cupped his hands and bowed to Hu Xinyue and turned to leave. What kind of joke was this? Qianyue had been with him for so many years and had been free and happy. Why would she follow Hu Xinyue to unify the Fox clan and question the heavens for no reason? It was purely because she had nothing better to do. Qianyue, be a salted fish. Hu Xinyue was still immersed in her impassioned speech when Ji Tianqing suddenly poured a bucket of cold water on her. She immediately widened her eyes. Hey, don't go. She reacted and quickly chased after Ji Tianqing into the sky. The two of them chased each other high in the sky, their speed as fast as lightning. At this time, Hu Xinyue, who had calmed down, finally understood many things. I know the Heavenly Fox you are talking about is called Qianyue. You said that she is in the safest place in the world and that I can see her at any time. She is with you, isn't she? Hu Xinyue flew with all her might and followed behind Ji Tianqing, questioning him all the way. Ji Tianqing ignored her and continued to fly north. Hu Xinyue saw hope. How could she give up so easily? She followed Ji Tianqing closely and did not stop persuading him. Long Tian, I don't care what your relationship with Qianyue is, but she is a heavenly fox after all, a member of my clan. You can hate me, ignore me and even belittle my dream. But you can't take away Qianyue's choice. She has the right to decide her own fate and control her own future. Most importantly, you can't help her break through the shackles and advance to the Divine King realm. Only by cultivating the special cultivation method of our Heavenly Fox clan can she break through the Divine King realm and even reach the peak of the Divine Path. Hearing this, Ji Tianqing nodded and said, You are right, I haven't gotten the cultivation method of the Heavenly Fox clan for the time being, so I can't help Qianyue. But I have already asked Qianyue. She would rather follow me and be a leisurely salted fish than follow you and become the king of the Fox clan and question the heavens. As long as I am strong enough, it doesn't matter whether she can break through the Divine King realm or not. Yes, he had been maintaining a spiritual connection with Qianyue. Although Qianyue did not show up, Ji Tianqing had conveyed Hu Xinyue's words to Qianyue. This result was also Qianyue's own choice. In addition, the little black dragon also dissuaded Qianyue from following Hu Xinyue. This woman looked a little crazy. But Ji Tianqing understood the little black dragon's selfishness, mainly because it did not want to be separated from Qianyue. These two had been together for hundreds of years. Ji Tianqing would not be surprised if a half-dragon half-fox monster was born one day. Seeing Ji Tianqing's determination, Hu Xinyue was anxious and continued to persuade him. Long Tian. Qianyue is young and ignorant, how can you be so selfish? Do you know that you will destroy her if you are so stubborn? It's none of your business, just pretend I didn't see you today. After saying this, Ji Tianqing sped up and soon widened the distance between them. Hu Xinyue's strength was not as good as Ji Tianqing's and she was injured. No matter how hard she tried to speed up, she could not catch up with Ji Tianqing. But she suddenly sensed something and was no longer anxious, and there was a trace of a smug smile in her eyes. The Alliance Master is here, you can't escape. Chapter 3674. Ji Tianqing was flying high up in the sky as fast as a ray of light. He had already left Hu Xinyue behind by almost 10,000 miles, and the distance between them was still increasing. But at this moment in the sky 10,000 miles in front of Ji Tianqing, there was a sudden roar of thunder. A huge gap appeared in the originally calm sky, and thousands of thunderbolts surged out from it. The rainbow-colored divine lightning forcefully tore open the sky, overflowing with powerful spatial fluctuations. Swoosh! Among the colorful thunderbolts, a tall figure descended from the sky and landed on the top of the sea of clouds. When the thunderbolts that surrounded the tall and domineering figure dissipated, the thousands of thunderbolts in the sky also dissipated. The gap in space that he had forcefully torn open was also quickly healing. This was a man wearing an ink-blue divine robe and a jade crown. He had a head full of purple-black hair that cascaded down his shoulders. The wind howled high up in the sky, but his hair and robe were still. This was because there was an invisible barrier around him. Using one's divine sense, one could see that it was layers of nomological laws and divine power that had formed a mysterious invisible shield. He had his hands behind his back and stood proudly with his back facing Ji Tianqing. Seeing him suddenly appear, Ji Tianqing immediately stopped and frowned as he observed his back. Although the man with purple-black hair had a human form on the surface, Ji Tianqing could see that he was actually a ferocious beast, and his true form must be as huge as a mountain. Moreover, what made him feel strange was that the man's divine soul aura and divine power gave him a sense of déjà vu. Just as Ji Tianqing was frowning and pondering, the man from the demon clan spoke in a low and dignified voice. You killed my subordinates and you still want to escape? Hearing this intimidating and dignified voice, Ji Tianqing's heart skipped a beat. He knew that the person in question had arrived. At the same time, the feeling of déjà vu about this person's aura also disappeared. At least he was unfamiliar with this low and dignified voice. Ji Tianqing looked at his back and said expressionlessly, If I'm not wrong, you are the leader of the 10,000 Demon Alliance, Divine King Luoho? That's right. The man from the demon clan did not turn his head. He looked proudly at the sky and said contemptuously, Since you know that I'm here, you should know that you have no hope of escaping. Kill yourself. It was a short and low sentence, but it was undeniably domineering. Ji Tianxing wasn't afraid at all. Instead, he sneered and said in a playful tone, "I wouldn't be afraid even if your real body was here, let alone an avatar. Presumably, you must have spent many years of effort in order to cultivate this external incarnation. Of course, if I kill you, do you think it of?" Hearing this, of the demons of the demon alliance, he was of the demon clan of the demon of. No wonder you dared to go against our alliance. It turns out that you do have some ability. You were actually able to tell at a glance that this was my external incarnation. As he spoke, he slowly turned to look at Ji Tianxing. It was only at this moment that Ji Tianxing finally saw his face clearly. He was a middle-aged man with a resolute and dignified face. His skin was bronze and he had a beard. Generally speaking, he was a dignified man with thick eyebrows and big eyes. There was nothing special about him. However, his pair of white and purple eyes seemed a bit abnormal, causing Ji Tianxing to frown and carefully observe. Upon closer inspection, Ji Tianxing realized that not only did this man have a pair of purple eyes, but he also had 9 layers of pupils. He looked very strange and mysterious. Ji Tianxing stared at the demon clan of the demon clan's eyes. Suddenly he thought of someone. This person's purple eyes are so strange. Why are they the same as that person? They both have purple eyes and there are 9 layers. Just as he was frowning in thought, the purple-eyed man also saw his face clearly, and he trembled imperceptibly. Immediately his eyes narrowed slightly. His double pupils contracted slowly as he stared at Ji Tianxing and observed carefully. At the same time, a thought flashed through his mind. This white-robed young man is from the dragon clan? His body shape, appearance and aura are all so familiar yet strange. Who is he? Could he be that person from back then? This is impossible. He left the dragon realm 1,000 years ago. It is said that he died in the void. How could he appear again? Just as Ji Tianxing and the man with purple eyes were looking at each other in silence, Hu Xinyue flew closer. She walked past Ji Tianxing and stopped in front of the purple-eyed man. She hurriedly bowed and greeted him respectfully. Xinyue greets the Alliance Master. Even though Hu Xinyue was wounded, her posture, eyes and tone of her salute were meticulous and respectful. Obviously, she respected the Alliance Master with 9 layers of purple eyes from the bottom of her heart. Divine King Luoho glanced at her and nodded slightly. He said gently, "No need for formalities. Go to the side and treat your injuries." "Understood. Thank you for your understanding, Alliance Master." Hu Xinyue bowed again and retreated behind him. However, before she began to heal herself, she sent a voice transmission to God King Luoho. "Lord Alliance Master, this person only killed Heavenly King Yan and the 2 patrol envoys. He spared the lives of the 2 Heavenly Kings and me. Also, he has one of my clansmen in his hands. Her name is Qianyu." Divine King Luoho raised his eyebrows and nodded slightly, indicating that he understood. Then he looked at Ji Tianxing again. The killing intent in his eyes weakened a little. "I don't care what grudges you have with the Tao Tai and Xianxia races. I only want to say that you killed one of our heavenly kings and 2 inspectors. The alliance needs an explanation." Divine King Luoho's eyes were calm as he spoke coldly. Ji Tianxing raised his eyebrows and smiled. "So, you mean that regardless of right or wrong, the reputation of the Myriad Demon Alliance is the most important?" "Of course." Divine King Luoho said expressionlessly. "Our alliance has established itself in the northwest and intimidates the entire Star Source continent. Even the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor has to treat us with respect. A nameless dragon tribe youth killed a pillar of our alliance. Naturally, he has to pay the price." Ji Tianxing was still smiling as he asked slowly, "Then what kind of explanation do you want?" "Your right arm, the sword in your hand, and leave the Star Source continent and never take a step back." Divine King Luoho's tone was dignified, domineering and cold. Ji Tianxing raised his eyebrows and smiled coldly. "Leave behind your right arm and sword, and leave the Star Source continent and never set foot on it again. Then, the Myriad Demon Alliance can announce to the outside world that you have killed me and avenged the experts under your command. This way the Myriad Demon Alliance will still be dignified." "Ah, this is a solution. If it were anyone else, they would have to agree to these conditions and even be grateful for your mercy." Divine King Luoho frowned and asked coldly, "It looks like you don't agree." Chapter 3675. As God King Luoho's voice rang out, A formless killing intent suddenly enveloped a radius of 10,000 miles. The temperature suddenly dropped to the extreme and even the space was frozen. However, Ji Tianqing silently dispelled the killing intent and pressure, and was not affected at all. He nodded, looked at God King Luoho and said in a relaxed tone, "Of course not. My right arm still needs to wield a sword and the sword in my hand needs to kill. How can I leave it to you? Furthermore, I will not be leaving the Star Source continent in the short term. I might come back often in the future." God King Luoho stared at him and said word by word, "You are very confident." Ji Tianqing continued to smile. "Not only am I confident but I am also unafraid of death." God King Luoho was silent for a moment, and the corners of his mouth gradually rose into a cold smile. "You should know that I am on par with the Gold Source Dragon Emperor." Ji Tianqing curled his lips and said disapprovingly, "No, you are wrong. The Gold Source Dragon Emperor is the first God King after the primordial era. He has cultivated for more than 29,000 years, and is about to take the final step. As for you, you have just reached that level and are still very far from the final step." God King Luoho frowned and stared at him in silence. Ji Tianqing smiled and added, "Isn't it just a peak, God King? Who hasn't?" God King Luoho's frown deepened and his 9 purple eyes flashed. He said slowly in a low voice, "The way you speak sounds very much like someone. Although you seem to be cursing, I do not intend to bicker with you." Ji Tianqing smiled and said faintly, "Your squinty eyes remind me of an old friend. That guy is like you and likes to squint at people. He is always gloomy and his mouth is very venomous. Therefore I gave him the elegant nickname of Venomous Tongue." Hearing this, God King Luoho's body stiffened and his pupils constricted. The cold smile on his face gradually disappeared. Ji Tianqing continued to stare at him and his expression did not change. He continued with a playful smile. "Although he is best at the Tao of Poison, Master said that it is ultimately a low-level Tao, and it will be difficult for him to achieve great things. Also, his name is very old-fashioned." God King Luoho stared straight at Ji Tianqing, his eyes flashing as if he wanted to see through him. Even though there was a storm in his heart, he suppressed his emotions very calmly. His tone did not waver as he asked calmly, "How old-fashioned?" Ji Tianqing thought for a moment and chuckled. "So unsophisticated, just like the farmers and coachmen of the mortal world." God King Rahu remained expressionless as he asked, "So his name is Snakeman?" Ji Tianqing chortled as he looked at God King Rahu. "Yes, it's indeed very old-fashioned." God King Rahu raised his eyebrows, his eyes no longer narrowed. Returning to normal, he nodded with a serious expression. "In that case, your old friend is a snake?" Ji Tianqing rubbed his chin and thought for a moment before replying, "According to Master, that fellow was originally an earth snake, but he made a great vow to become the divine dragon of the 9th heaven. Moreover, he wanted to be the king of divine dragons, the heavenly dragon." With that said, he stared at God King Rahu and asked with a smile, "Don't you think that's very laughable?" God King Rahu nodded and could not help but chuckle. "Yes. What a fool's dream. It's indeed laughable. However, I once had a young master. He was very special and was as confident as you. When he heard this joke, he did not find it funny at all. He maintained his usual stoic expression and pretended to be cold and profound. He even said that the heavens and earth were one and all things originated from the same source. There was no difference between the ants of the earth and the stars in the sky. Even the lowliest ant, as long as it has ambition and perseverance, will eventually become a star." With that said, God King Rahu stared at Ji Tianqing with a smile on his lips. He asked, "Tell me, is my young master a lunatic?" Ji Tianqing nodded in deep agreement. "Yes, it's indeed crazy talk." God King Rahu's smile deepened as he continued, "My young master is indeed a lunatic. He loves the sword like a madman and cherishes it as his life. His talent in the Tao of the sword is unparalleled. For the sake of the Tao of the sword, he can even give up on a woman who is infatuated with him. Do you think he has gone mad from practicing the sword?" "Yes." Ji Tianqing nodded again before asking with a smile, "A whimsical earth snake and a madman who loves the sword like a madman. What do you think will happen when they meet?" "Ha ha ha." God King Rahu laughed heartily as he answered, "They will turn the divine palace into a mess. Even the guards and servants will run away. Old Master will be so angry that his beard will fall off. He can only leave home and travel the 4 seas and 5 continents. Although he was laughing heartily, 2 streams of hot tears flowed from his eyes. Ji Tianqing also put away the sword of burial of heaven. He opened his arms and walked towards God King Rahu. In the blink of an eye, he crossed hundreds of kilometers in the sky and arrived in front of God King Rahu. However, God King Rahu did not open his arms to hug him. Instead, he crossed his arms in front of him and slowly knelt in the sky, bowing deeply towards Ji Tianqing. This was an ancient ritual of the dragon race. Very few dragon race members used it nowadays. However, this was the legacy of the divine palace and the rule set by that old dragon. God King Rahu knelt in front of Ji Tianqing in a nearly prostrating posture. Tears streamed down his face as his body trembled. He called out in an old and hoarse voice, "Snake man greets young master." It was just 6 short words, but they seemed to use up all his strength. They were filled with the vicissitudes of life and bitterness. Ji Tianqing was also filled with sorrow. Hundreds of memories and thousands of scenes appeared in his mind. For a moment he had a myriad of thoughts. However, he did not speak. God King Rahu remained prostrated on the ground, not even raising his head. Not far away, Xianxia, who was supposed to be recuperating, had long been awakened by the two's crazy words. She had been quiet all this while, patiently watching Long Tian and God King Rahu talk about strange things. At that time she had felt that something was amiss. Until now, when she saw God King Rahu prostrating himself with tears in his eyes, she was dumbfounded. Her eyes widened and her mouth opened silently. Her eyes were filled with shock and disbelief. The sky was silent. The clouds were light and the wind was light. After a long time, Ji Tianqing slowly closed his eyes, suppressing the memories and sorrow in his heart. He reached out his hands and held God King Rahu's arms, helping him up. He said, "Get up. You are now a peak God King, the leader of the Myriad Demon Alliance. Don't let the various races in the world be shocked by kneeling and crying like this." When Ji Tianqing said this, he looked down at God King Rahu and did not look at Xianxia. However, Xianxia felt that he was referring to something else. Her heart skipped a beat and she quickly closed her eyes and pretended to recuperate. God King Rahu also realized something. He quickly got up and nodded. "Yes. Young master is right, this old servant has been too careless. This old servant almost harmed young master. I hope young master will punish me." Chapter 3676. Both he and Ji Tianqing understood the reason behind Divine King Luoho's words. However, Xianxia did not understand. She could not help but frown as she pondered. Ji Tianqing glanced at her and said indifferently, "All right, stop pretending. You're so childish." Xianxia's face turned red as she felt guilty. However, given the situation, she could only open her eyes and apologize to Divine King Luoho. "Alliance Master, I did not mean to eavesdrop. Please." Divine King Luoho nodded slightly and said in a low and dignified tone, "This is my greatest secret. Therefore you should know what to do." Xianxia hurriedly bowed and said respectfully, "Rest assured, Alliance Master. I will keep my mouth shut. I would rather die than say a word." Divine King Luoho nodded in satisfaction and instructed, "All right, bring the 2 heavenly kings back to Myriad Demon Palace first. Settle the remaining matters as soon as possible." "Yes, Master." Xianxia bowed again and prepared to leave. Divine King Luoho frowned and shouted in a dignified tone, "Come back." Xianxia's body stiffened. She hurriedly turned around and bowed to await the order. Divine King Luoho frowned and said, "Apologize to young master." Xianxia did not dare to hesitate. She hurriedly bowed to Ji Tianqing and said in a respectful tone, "Xianxia has eyes but failed to see. I have offended young lord. I hope young lord can forgive me. If young master wants to punish me, Xianxia will not dare to complain." Divine King Luoho frowned again and reprimanded angrily, "Bastard! How can you call me young master?" Then, Xianxia was dumbfounded. She hurriedly thought about how to address him. "Xianxia greets old master. Old master, please." Divine King Luoho's eyebrows twitched. Anger surged in his eyes as he shouted, "Old master?" Xianxia was terrified. She could only brace herself and explain, "Alliance Master, you are Xianxia's master. Shouldn't your young master be called old master?" Ahem. Ji Tianqing smiled awkwardly and pretended to cough to cover it up. Seeing that Luoho Divine King was about to fly into a rage again and reprimand the terrified Xianxia, Qin Lai hurriedly came to the rescue. He laughed softly and said, Alright, it's just a form of address. There's no need to be so conflicted. Of course, the old lord did feel awkward when he heard this. Xinyu, you can just call me young master from now on. This. Xinyu was even more terrified and didn't dare to agree. God King Rahu was rather anxious as well. He asked Ji Tianxing, young master, this form of address is disrespectful to you. Ji Tianxing waved his hand and said, just call me that, it won't arouse any suspicion. Oh right, in the future if there's someone else around, don't call him young master. Just call him young master. God King Rahu felt that this made sense, so he nodded in agreement. Xinyu heaved a sigh of relief as if a heavy burden had been lifted from her shoulders. She quickly bowed and said, thank you for your understanding. Xinyu is very grateful. If young master has no other instructions, Xinyu will take her leave first. Ji Tianxing smiled and nodded. He waved his hand and gestured for her to leave. Xinyu bowed and retreated 100 feet away. Only then did she feel relieved. She flew away as if she was escaping. Looking at her back as she left in a panic, Ji Tianxing's lips curled into a smile. He felt that it was rather amusing. She must feel that it's very exciting to be in such a bizarre situation, right? God King Rahu looked at Xinyue's back and stole a glance at Ji Tianxing's expression. He lowered his voice and said, young master, that girl and her mother's lives were saved by this old servant. She's usually quite smart and clever. She's also obedient and pleasant. If you don't mind, this old servant will take the initiative to make her your personal maidservant. Before he could finish speaking, Ji Tianxing turned his head and looked at him. He sneered and said, maidservant? Personal maidservant? Snake Fu, who do you think young master is? God King Rahu hurriedly smiled and said in an embarrassed tone, young master, you were as cold as an iceberg in the past. You didn't get close to women. Old master felt that it was a pity. Now that you've finally changed, if you can take more wives, I believe old master's spirit in heaven will be gratified. Ji Tianxing's smile disappeared. He said seriously, young master has already married and has children. He and his wife are harmonious and his family is happy. Don't make trouble. As for master, Snake Fu, when I went to Mysterious Paradise, I heard from the divine general guarding the gate that master has already passed away. What's going on? Master is the master of the heavenly dragon continent, a peak divine king. How can he pass away? After a pause he asked again, also, why didn't you stay in the heavenly dragon divine palace? Why did you come to the Starsource continent? Why did you change your name to Rahu and establish this myriad demon alliance? Sigh. God King Rahu sighed when the lord of the heavenly dragon was mentioned. He said in a low voice, young master, this is a long story. It's not something that can be explained in a few words. This is not the place to talk. Follow me back to the Myriad Demon Palace and I'll tell you in detail. Ji Tianxing thought for a moment. The Myriad Demon Palace, the headquarters of the Myriad Demon Alliance, was outside the 3 northern regions. Although it was far away, Snake Fu had a way to rush back quickly. Therefore he nodded in agreement. After all, he had already planned to return to the Heavenly Dragon continent to investigate the truth of his master's death. Now that he had met his master's old servant, it was a blessing. He naturally had to interrogate him properly. Zhoush. God King Rahu took out a snake-shaped sword and pierced it into the sky. Suddenly, a gap appeared in the sky, and a dazzling white light lit up, surging with spatial divine power. Young master, please follow me. God King Rahu bowed and flew into the gap in space with Ji Tianxing and disappeared. Zhoush. In the next moment, divine light flashed and space became chaotic. The two of them traveled millions of miles and appeared in a majestic city. God King Rahu brought Ji Tianxing into a palace in the city and left the city through an underground teleportation divine array. Next, the two of them traveled tens of millions of miles and arrived at the border of the Azure Snow region. The two of them flew across the border and God King Rahu used his teleportation technique to bring Ji Tianxing into another city. Just like that, the two of them used teleportation and teleportation divine arrays to cross 3 regions in 4 hours and return to the Black Sea of the Dark Water region. This was a black water region with a radius of 3 million miles. Because it was so large, it was called the Black Sea. This inland sea had special powers and resources, and it also had all kinds of strange phenomena and miraculous effects. The headquarters of the Myriad Demon Alliance was set up here. The Myriad Demon Divine Palace was located in the center of the Black Sea. It suppressed the entire Black Sea and gathered divine power for millions of miles. Ji Tianxing followed God King Rahu to the center of the Black Sea. When he saw the myriad demon divine palace, he was amazed. Above the boundless Black Sea, a cloud platform with a radius of 10,000 miles floated. Above the cloud platform, there was a black city filled with pavilions, terraces, and mansions. This myriad demon city was not big, only a few hundred miles wide, but it had an extremely solemn, dignified, and solemn aura. Those who had the right to live in this city were the upper echelons and core members of the Myriad Demon Alliance, as well as their family members. Chapter 3677. 10,000 Demon City. In the center of the 10,000 Demon Divine Palace, in the most sacred and solemn Alliance Master's study. In the spacious and bright study, only Ji Tianxing and Luo Ho Master and Servant were present. It was exceptionally quiet. But outside the study, there were 2 Divine King Realm Guards as well as more than 20 High Divine Lords hidden sentries. This place was heavily guarded. Even the elders, division masters and deacons of the 10,000 Demon Alliance could not casually approach. In addition, the study was set up with a supreme-grade king-level divine formation that could block divine sense. Ji Tianxing and Luo Ho's conversation in the study was extremely safe and would not leak anything. Outside the window, the sun was setting and the sky was darkening. In the study, the gemstone lamps on the wall shone with a soft light. Ji Tianxing sat on the large jade chair beside the study table, looking at Luo Ho with shining eyes. As for God King Rahu, he stood to the side and bowed slightly, appearing just like a servant. A peak God King, the 10,000 Demon Alliance Master who could be compared to the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor, was actually so respectful to a dragon race youth. If anyone saw this scene, they would probably be scared to death. You just said that Master left the Heavenly Dragon continent more than 900 years ago? Ji Tianxing looked at Luo Ho and asked with a frown, then where did he go? What did he want to do? Luo Ho nodded and answered in a low voice. Old Master said that he wanted to atone for his sins, so he left the Heavenly Dragon continent and the Dragon Realm. Atone for his sins? Left the Dragon Realm? Ji Tianxing's frown deepened. He asked, why did he want to atone for his sins? Who did he want to atone for his sins? Did he leave the Dragon Realm to go to the Outer Realm? Luo Ho nodded, yes. But Old Master only left behind these 2 sentences and did not say where he went. The Outer Realm is extremely vast. There are 6 major star regions nearby, and even further away is the endless sea of stars. As for what sins Old Master wanted to atone for and to whom, this old servant does not know. Ji Tianxing's heart was heavy. He asked in a low voice, so, you left your doppelganger in the Star Source continent to control the Myriad Demon Alliance, while your true self left the Dragon Realm to look for Master in outer space? Yes. God King Rahu nodded and said, ever since this old servant established the Myriad Demon Alliance 700 years ago, my original body left the Dragon Realm. Over the past few hundred years, this old servant's main body has traveled through the 2 major star fields, but to no avail. However, as long as I don't see Old Master's corpse and belongings, this old servant will continue to search for them. Ji Tianxing frowned and thought for a moment, then asked doubtfully, Master only left the Dragon Realm and never appeared again. This can only be called missing. Why do you and the powerhouses of the Dragon Realm all believe that Master has fallen? Could it be that Master's lamp of destiny has already been extinguished? Of course, he knew that his Master Heavenly Dragon Emperor's Heaven's Mandate Lantern was placed in the secret hall of the Heavenly Dragon Divine Palace, and it had been lit for over 29,000 years. According to common sense, if there were no accidents, Heavenly Dragon Emperor's lifespan should have reached 90,000 years. God King Rahu nodded again, tears welling up in his eyes, and said in a sorrowful tone, yes. 3 years after Old Master left, the lamp of destiny was extinguished. This. Ji Tianxing's body stiffened, great sorrow filled his heart, and although there were no tears in his eyes, they were already red. In a daze, his memory returned to more than 1,500 years ago. At that time, the 5 elements world was sealed and he was unable to ascend, so he used the space-time roulette to forcefully break through the seal of the 5 elements world and ascend to the upper realm. Originally, he should have ascended to the God realm. But for some reason he actually ascended to the Dragon Realm and fell into the endless primitive forest. At that time he was heavily injured and his consciousness was blurry and he was unconscious for about 7 days and 7 nights. When he opened his eyes, the first person he saw in the dragon realm was that white-haired dragon elder wearing hemp clothes and cloth shoes. He didn't know why, but that ordinary-looking old man was like a holy and benevolent god in his eyes. It was that old man who saved his life and healed his injuries with a supreme divine ability. Then the old man said something that he would never forget. "You are not a demon, but you ascended to this place, and the first person you saw when you opened your eyes was this old man. Perhaps this is an opportunity for you and me, and also the will of the heavens. This old man has never accepted a disciple, but today I will make an exception and accept you as my disciple. Come with this old man." Just like that, Kenshin became the only disciple of the white-haired old man, and entered the heavenly dragon divine palace. Not long after, he had a name, Long Tian. Later he found out the true identity of the white-haired old man in hemp clothes. One of the 5 overlords of the dragon realm, the peerless god king in charge of the entire heavenly dragon continent, Heavenly Dragon Emperor. Many years later, Long Tian asked his master many times why Heavenly Dragon Emperor made an exception for him and chose him as his disciple. Heavenly Dragon Emperor just smiled and replied that it was the will of the heavens. Until today, Ji Tianqing still did not understand why Heavenly Dragon Emperor accepted him as his disciple and treated him as his own. The so-called will of the heavens, he only took it as an excuse for Heavenly Dragon Emperor. He was very clear in his heart how much effort Heavenly Dragon Emperor put into him, how much he doted on him. But the strange thing was, he had always regarded himself as a disciple and respected Heavenly Dragon Emperor. But Heavenly Dragon Emperor never claimed to be his master. Not only did Long Tian find it strange, the old servant Herfu was also puzzled. There was once when Herfu played chess with Heavenly Dragon Emperor and asked him about it. Heavenly Dragon Emperor smiled and said while stroking his beard, "To meet in this life, it is the fate of this life. What master, disciple, it is just an empty title. If there is a previous life, this life, who is the master, who is the disciple, it is unknown." Herfu was confused. He thought that Heavenly Dragon Emperor was open-minded and had unparalleled wisdom, but he still did not understand what he meant. For this matter, Herfu and Long Tian discussed it in private for a few months. Just as Ji Tianqing was immersed in his memories and thoughts, God King Rahu continued. Although the extinguishing of the destiny lamp signifies that the old master has perished, the destiny lamp has been extinguished. But as long as the old master's remains and belongings are not seen, this old servant does not believe that the old master has fallen. After all, the old master was the first-generation divine king after the ancient times, one of the most ancient and powerful experts in the dragon realm. His life was as long as the heavens. How could he fall? Ji Tianqing nodded slightly and said with certainty, "Master has never done evil in his life. He is the most sacred among the few major dragon races. He is the most tranquil expert. He has great wisdom, great compassion. If the heavens have eyes, how could he fall for no reason? I also believe that master is still alive." The master and servant looked at each other. Their eyes were very firm and filled with hope. After a moment of silence, Ji Tianqing asked again, "Although master is missing, Heavenly Dragon Divine Palace is still there. Herfu, why did you leave Heavenly Dragon Divine Palace? Why did you not guard master's cave residence and foundation?" Luoho Divine King quickly kowtowed and said with shame, "This old servant is useless. I am unable to stop the new Dragon Emperor from entering the palace and taking over the old master's foundation. Please punish me." Chapter 3678. The new Dragon Emperor will enter the God Palace? Ji Tianqing immediately frowned. His eyes turned cold and a murderous intent flashed in his eyes. Who stole master's blood, sweat and tears? When master was still alive, there were only a few who were above the 8th level of the God King realm. In the entire Heavenly Dragon continent, there are only 3 top forces with 9th level God Kings. The new Dragon Emperor must be one of them. Luoho Divine King knelt on the ground and said solemnly, "Young Lord is right, the new Dragon Emperor is indeed from one of the 3 top forces. He is the North Sea Dragon King Palace's Palace Master, Dragon King North Sea." Hearing this, Ji Tianqing sneered and said with hatred, "It's him." Back then his master had treated him like a nephew and had given him a lot of care and guidance. When master was still alive, the North Sea Dragon King Palace was also on good terms with the God Palace and was very respectful. I didn't expect that after master went missing, it was him who stole master's blood, sweat and tears. Such a greedy bastard, I will kill him sooner or later. Young lord, please calm down. Seeing Ji Tianqing's murderous aura, Luoho Divine King quickly advised, Young lord, you are mistaken. When the news of Old Master's disappearance spread, it shocked the 4 seas and 5 continents. Old Master's old friends, those dragon emperors, personally went to the God Palace to offer their condolences. The entire North Sea Dragon King Palace wore mourning clothes for 3 years, and Dragon King North Sea wore white mourning clothes and stayed in the God Palace's ancestral hall for 10 years. In the following 100 years, the heavenly dragon continent was without a ruler and everyone was in a state of panic. At that time, many heroes rose and gathered their strength, causing chaos in the 100 regions. There were also experts and top forces from all over the 5 continents and 4 seas who were eyeing the heavenly dragon continent covetously with the intention of taking over. With the old servant and Old Master's old subordinates, it was impossible to suppress the rebels and enemies. The heavenly dragon continent was about to fall into chaos. In the end, the 3 dragon emperors personally went to the heavenly dragon divine palace and announced to the world that the heavenly dragon continent was going to choose a new emperor. After all, the heavenly dragon continent could not be without a ruler, and the billions of living beings could not fall into the abyss of suffering. That was a situation that the Old Master didn't want to see. Therefore, under the supervision and witness of the 3 dragon emperors, the dragon clan powerhouses of the Sky Dragon continent were selected and tested by the 3 dragon emperors. In the end, Dragon King North Sea won and succeeded as the new emperor. After hearing God King Rahu's explanation, Ji Tianqing fell silent. After a long time, he nodded lightly and said with a bitter smile, Master has always been compassionate and benevolent. The last thing he wants is to see the living beings in misery and suffering, the chaos of war and the slaughter of weapons. The 3 dragon emperors were his good friends. They knew him well. Since the Sky Dragon continent was about to descend into chaos, it was reasonable for the 3 dragon emperors to select a new emperor. The new emperor could not be from other continents, he could only be a citizen of the Sky Dragon continent, and he had to be of the dragon race. Since Dark North has passed the test of the 3 dragon emperors and received the approval of the people, then he is the rightful successor. It's not considered stealing. God King Rahu smiled bitterly as well. That's right. Even if this old servant had witnessed the entire process, he had no reason or qualification to stop it. He could only congratulate Dark North on succeeding the throne. Unfortunately, young Master had already left the Dragon Realm for the God Realm a few 100 years ago. If young Master had stayed, the throne would definitely have been yours. No one else would have been able to touch it. Ji Tianqing waved his hand and said, Forget it. It's been a few 100 years. There's no point in talking about it. Oh right, after Dark North succeeded the throne, how did he do things? Did he settle scores with his old subjects and get rid of his dissidents? Did he remember Master's teachings to protect the billions of living beings and ensure peace? God King Rahu shook his head and said solemnly, Dark North probably knew that his throne was not easy to come by. If he made any mistakes, he would be criticized by the world's experts. Therefore, after he succeeded the throne, he has been cautious and conscientious to protect the peace of the Sky Dragon continent. Everyone said that the other 4 dragon emperors were in seclusion all year round and did not care about worldly affairs. Only the Dark North Dragon Emperor was the busiest. Dark North took good care of his old subjects and did not get rid of his dissidents. He also tried his best to keep this old servant in the God Palace to work for him and for the well-being of the people. However, the old master has gone missing. This old servant has no more attachments in this life. I only have one goal for the rest of my life, and that is to find the old master's traces. At this point, God King Rahu kowtowed towards the northern sky and said with tears in his eyes, Snake Man was originally an earth snake in the forest. He should have died 20,000 years ago. If not for the old master's help and guidance, Snake Man would not have such a lifespan and abilities. The old master gave Snake Man a new lease of life. Snake Man's life belongs to the old master. Ji Tianqing felt a little sad when he heard this. He quickly comforted God King Rahu and asked him to stand up and talk. After a while, when God King Rahu calmed down, Ji Tianqing continued asking, I understand how you feel. I also know that you only want to find Master's traces and whereabouts. However, why did you change your appearance and come to the Star Source continent to establish the Myriad Demon Alliance? God King Rahu cupped his hands and answered, Among the 5 continents, the experts of 4 continents know this old servant. Only the Star Source continent is unfamiliar. The Gold Source Dragon Emperor did not have any relationship with the Old Master. This old servant only wanted to find the Old Master's traces and did not want to be disturbed by other things. Therefore I changed my appearance. However, this old servant was alone and could not do as I wished. Therefore I established the Myriad Demon Alliance and used it to gather information and intelligence for this old servant. Ji Tianxing nodded in understanding. Indeed. You are an old servant of Master. Back then you followed Master to the 5 continents and 4 seas to visit the various dragon emperors and peak forces. Those people all know you. No matter if they treat you well or badly, they will still pester you. Changing your appearance and settling down in the unfamiliar Star Source continent was indeed the best choice. Snake Man, did your Myriad Demon Alliance find any clues in the past few hundred years? God King Rahu nodded and explained, we searched the entire dragon realm. We also investigated the 5 continents and 4 seas as well as countless forbidden areas and secret realms. We can confirm that the Old Master is not in the dragon realm. He must be in the outer world. However, the outer world is vast and the 6 star zones are boundless. It is very difficult to search the entire place. Therefore, this old servant's main body searched the outer world. The Myriad Demon Alliance that this old servant created remained in the dragon realm to investigate. This old servant thought that if we wanted to find the Old Master's traces, we would have to start from the root. Before the Old Master left, he said that he was going to atone for his sins. Therefore, this old servant investigated the word, atone, for several hundred years and indeed found many secrets. Ji Tianxing's interest was immediately piqued. He looked at God King Rahu with a burning gaze and asked, what secrets? God King Rahu replied, although the 4 seas of the dragon realm are peaceful now and all races coexist peacefully. However, this old servant found that before the ancient era, the races were not at peace. Moreover, many of them were sinful races that were punished by the heavens. For example, the dragon race, the phoenix race, the Qilan race, the fox race, the Xianxia race, the Taotai race and so on. This old servant guessed that the atonement that the Old Master spoke of might be related to the sinful races. Book Guest House Reading Website. Chapter 3679. Sinners. Ji Tianxing frowned deeply as he muttered this word. This was the 2nd time he had heard this word. However, the origin of this word all came from the mouth of God King Rahu. Ji Tianxing pondered for a moment but still had no clue, so he asked, Ophiuchus, what's going on with the sinners? Why did the heavens punish them? What punishment is there for being a sinner? God King Rahu shook his head and said regretfully, this old servant also does not know why the heavens punished them. I only found out that the sinners originated from the ancient times. As for the punishment, it is very likely that their bloodline will wither and they will never be able to break through to the peak of the divine way. His tone was uncertain and he added, this is only the conclusion that this old servant came to based on the various clues I found over the past few hundred years. It may not be correct. Ji Tianxing frowned and muttered, never be able to break through to the peak of the divine way? In other words, they can only stop at the peak of the divine king realm and cannot take the final step to grasp the power of the heavens? God King Rahu nodded. Ji Tianxing asked again, phoenixes and Qilins are extremely rare in the dragon realm. That's why they are as rare as phoenix feathers and Qilin horns. But are the bloodlines of the dragon race, fox race, Xianxia race, Taotai race, and other races truly withered and became fewer and fewer? God King Rahu nodded seriously and said, young master, you also know that the reproduction ability of the monster race is second only to that of the human race. The monster race that has not been punished by the heavens has been living in peace for the past 30,000 years and has been growing stronger and stronger. Only the sinners, no matter what method they use, will have fewer and fewer children and bloodlines. For example, the Xianxia and Taotai races were mighty in the ancient times and their numbers and strength were close to that of the dragon race. But after the ancient times, their numbers withered to about 60 to 70,000. 20,000 years ago, it fell to 20 to 30,000. 10,000 years ago it fell to a little more than 10,000. And today the combined number of children of the Taotai and Xianxia races barely exceeds 10,000. The situation of the dragon race is almost the same. Now their bloodline descendants are becoming fewer and fewer. Hearing this, Ji Tianxing fell silent. He had never investigated this before, nor had he paid attention to this matter. He also did not know about the existence of the sinners. In this life, after returning to the Dragon Realm, he first came into contact with the Taotai and Xianxia clans, and then he met Zhou Xian. Now that he heard God King Luoho's analysis, he came to a realization and said in his heart, as expected. After all, he was well aware of the number of people from the Taotai and Xianxia clans. The most pitiful Heavenly Fox clan, including Zhou Xian and Qian Yu, only had 5 of them left. At this rate, the Heavenly Fox clan might disappear completely in 10,000 years. After a long while, Ji Tianxing said in a leisurely tone, "It seems like the sinners and the heavens really do exist." He thought of something and asked Rahu God King, "In the current Dragon Realm, has anyone broken through the peak of the Divine Way and reached a higher realm?" God King Luoho thought carefully for a long time, then shook his head and said, "In the 4 seas and 5 continents, there are about a dozen peak divine kings, but none of them have broken through to a higher realm. Even the 3 dragon emperors and the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor have been cultivating in seclusion, thinking of ways to increase their strength, but they have not been able to take the last step." Ji Tianxing said calmly, "But in the God realm, there are already 5 peak divine kings who have taken the last step." What? God King Luoho was shocked and showed an expression of disbelief. They can break through the shackles, reach a higher realm and control the power of the heavens? Young master, what realm is that? Ji Tianxing answered expressionlessly, "Those 5 fellows call themselves God Emperors." God King Luoho still could not hide his shock and said faintly, "The Dragon Realm has 5 Dragon Emperors and the God Realm has 5 God Emperors. Sounds the same. But the Dragon Emperors are only overlords, while the God Emperors are supreme gods who have transcended the heavens and control the heavens." Ji Tianxing's lips curled into a cold smile and said, "Transcended the heavens and the earth? Not necessarily. I have never seen those 5 God Emperors, and I believe that the power of the heavens is not that easy to control. Otherwise, they would not have enslaved billions of living beings, plundering and seizing cultivation resources day and night." God King Luoho looked at Ji Tianxing with eager eyes and said with anticipation, "Young master, it has been more than 1,500 years since you left for the God Realm. You were only at the 4th level of the Divine King Realm when you left, but now you are at the 9th level of the Divine King Realm. Your talent and aptitude seem to be even more monstrous than before. If the old master knew about this, he would be very happy and proud. Young master, can you tell this old servant about the God Realm? What is the God Realm like? What interesting things have you experienced in the God Realm in the past 1,000 years? Obviously, God King Luoho only thought that Ji Tianxing had succeeded in cultivating in the God Realm, and now he had returned victorious. He could not imagine how many bizarre things had happened in the past 1,500 years. He also could not know that the young master in front of him had also reached the peak of the Divine Way, and now he had been reborn. Of course, this was Ji Tianxing's greatest secret, and he would not tell God King Luoho for the time being. Facing God King Luoho's eager eyes, Ji Tianxing smiled and said, "The God Realm is very similar to the Dragon Realm, but there are also many differences. In the past 1,000 years I have indeed experienced many things. When there is time in the future I will tell you about it slowly." God King Luoho hurriedly nodded in agreement and said with a smile, "Young master, although the old master is no longer here since you have returned, this old servant will follow you in the future. If you want to succeed the old master's throne, then this old servant will assist you and take it back from Dark North. If you do not wish to succeed the throne, then this old servant and the Myriad Demon Alliance will be your most loyal servants. No matter what you want to do, this old servant will follow you through water and tread on fire without hesitation." Ji Tianxing patted him on the shoulder and said with a smile, "Old man, you were not as emotional as you are now. Why have you changed?" God King Luoho sighed and said with emotion, "In the past you and the old master were both here and we were always safe. This old servant did not ask for anything, so naturally I would not reveal my feelings. But after experiencing all this old servant felt the pain of losing his family. From then on, this old servant swore in his heart that he would do everything in his power to protect his family. Since you have returned, this old servant has to give you an explanation and make a statement." Ji Tianxing nodded slightly and said, "I do not care about the throne or not. I have returned to the Dragon Realm this time. Other than to look for master, there is something more important." "What is it?" God King Luoho cupped his fists and said in a sonorous tone, Young master only needs to give the order and the entire Myriad Demon Alliance will listen to it. Ji Tianxing looked out the window, a trace of worry in his eyes, and said, just as you said, this young master also has to do everything in his power to protect his family. I have returned to the Dragon Realm to find my son, Ji Wuhan. Book Guest House Reading Website. Chapter 3680. Your son, Ji Wuhan. Divine King Luoho was stunned, looking at Ji Tianxing with a heart full of puzzlement. Young lord, you indeed have a family and even have a son? Why is your son Little Master surnamed Ji? Also, how did he go missing? Where did he go missing? Ji Tianxing sighed and said in a heavy tone, this matter is a long story, I'll tell you in detail in the future. Divine King Luoho hurriedly nodded his head to indicate that he understood and said, that's good too. Young lord is weary from the journey and just came to the Myriad Demon City. You must have a good rest for a period of time. This old servant will get people to arrange your daily life right away. After you rest well, we'll talk about this matter in detail. Young lord, please rest assured, this old servant will definitely mobilize all the power of the Myriad Demon Alliance. No matter what, I'll find Little Master back. Ji Tianxing nodded his head to indicate his agreement. Divine King Luoho bowed and took his leave, finding people to arrange Ji Tianxing's daily life. Not long later, Divine King Luoho brought over a dark-skinned, short, hunchbacked old man. This old man's head was like a date pit, and his eyes were like green beans. He did not look ferocious but felt somewhat comical. But Ji Tianxing observed carefully and discovered that this old man was a black tortoise. Furthermore, he was also a 7th-stage realm high-ranking Divine King. Divine King Luoho bowed in greeting and said, young master, this is the Myriad Demon Alliance's internal affairs supervisor, Black Tortoise Lu. In the future, if you have any needs, you just have to instruct Black Tortoise Lu. This subordinate still has some matters to deal with, so I'll take my leave first. Ji Tianxing waved his hand, indicating for Divine King Luoho to leave on his own. After he left, Black Tortoise Lu hurriedly knelt on the ground and bowed, saying with an incomparably respectful attitude, this old servant pays respect to young master. Lord Alliance Chief instructed that this old servant will definitely serve young master with all my heart. Ji Tianxing nodded slightly, indicating for Black Tortoise Lu to get up. Following that, Black Tortoise Lu led Ji Tianxing out of the study and headed for Profound Pine Palace 100,000 feet away. On the way, Lu Xiangui humbly led the way for Ji Tianxing and introduced the situation in the Demon City and the Divine Palace. After his introduction, Ji Tianxing found out that the Profound Pine Palace was a divine palace that was only open to entertain top-notch guests. Xianxia Palace was protected by 9 layers of divine formations, making it impregnable. Furthermore, it was very quiet and secluded. It was the most suitable place for guests to rest and cultivate. Alliance Master Luoho did not arrange for Ji Tianxing to stay next door because he was afraid that too many people would enter and leave the palace and disturb Ji Tianxing's rest. Ji Tianxing didn't have any requirements, so he agreed to this arrangement and followed Lu Xiangui into Xianxia Palace. There were only 30 guards and 10 maids in Profound Pine Palace. However, these were all elite experts and they were incomparably loyal and intelligent. After sending off the Black Tortoise, Ji Tianxing stayed at the Profound Pine Palace. Previously he had been running around cultivating and killing. He was indeed a little tired. Now that he had settled down in the Thousand Demon City, it could be said that he was safe and had no worries. Naturally, he had to rest for a few days. Most importantly, he had killed so many divine kings previously and gained a lot. He could take the opportunity to cultivate in seclusion for a period of time. Night fell. Thousands of lights in the Thousand Demon City were like stars in the sky. On the contrary, the surrounding night sky and black sea were engulfed by the boundless darkness. It appeared very lonely. Inside the Profound Pine Palace, Ji Tianxing sat cross-legged in a secret chamber. The 9 Heavens 10 Absolutes pagoda floated in front of him. Although the secret chamber's original protective formation had been activated, before he entered the divine pagoda, he still cast a spell and set up a divine formation. Zhoush. After setting up the divine formation, he entered the divine pagoda's distorted spacetime. Returning to the blood flame sacred tree, he saw that everyone was still cultivating in seclusion. Even Qian Yu, who was awakened by him previously and talked with him, was also cultivating. Hence, he sat cross-legged under the sacred tree and began to count his spoils of war. After spending several hours, he finally counted the results. Along the way he had killed a total of 78 divine kings and obtained 78 divine spark fragments. This included the 2 inspectors and a heavenly king who had followed Zhou Xian on the mission. The cultivation resources and wealth he had obtained were as much as 14 trillion. In addition, he already had a few trillion in wealth in his interspatial ring. Presently, his net worth had reached an enormous amount of 20 trillion. This number was really terrifying. Those 2 inspectors and a heavenly king were really unlucky. If Ophiuchus had appeared earlier, they would not have died under my sword. Ji Tianxing muttered and felt that it was a pity. Then he began to devour the divine spark fragments. Swoosh. He held a dozen divine spark fragments in each hand and activated the Devour Divine ability. He quickly devoured the energy in the divine spark fragments and stripped them of their divine Tao laws. Time passed silently. His strength steadily increased. 1 day, 2 days, 5 days, 8 days. As he devoured the divine spark fragments one by one, his strength became more and more vigorous. Ji Tianxing had already stabilized his foundation at the 6th level of the Divine King realm. Even if he devoured the divine spark fragments now and rapidly increased his strength, there would not be any danger or hidden danger. And this time he coincidentally met his master's old servant, Ophiuchus, and found out about his master's disappearance. He had a faint premonition that he would definitely face various experts from the dragon realm in the future. So he was more and more anxious to increase his strength. He was immersed in the joy of absorbing energy and increasing his strength. He actually forgot about the passage of time. This closed-door cultivation lasted for an entire year. A year later he had devoured 39 divine spark fragments and finally ended his cultivation. Even though he had only devoured half of the divine spark fragments. But among these divine spark fragments, there was a 9th stage divine king, Tao Yongxing's divine spark. So his strength had increased by leaps and bounds. It had increased by more than 3 times. Now he had reached the mid-late 6th level of the Divine King realm. His divine power was boundless. He had also stripped dozens of divine Tao laws from the 39 divine spark fragments. Now the number of divine Tao laws he had mastered had reached as many as 670. This was already comparable to the majority of 9th stage divine kings. And most importantly, he was more proficient in the art of overlaying laws than ordinary divine kings. Similarly, he had mastered 670 divine Tao laws. He could overlay more than 300 of them in his remarkable abilities. As for other divine kings, they could at most overlay more than 100 of them. Those who could overlay more than 200 types of laws were the top experts and important figures in the dragon realm. Phew! After ending his cultivation, Ji Tianxing exhaled a turbid breath. His divine light receded, and his vast and vigorous aura calmed down. He opened his eyes and muttered to himself, I'm not far from the upper-level Divine King realm. Once I break through to the upper-level Divine King realm, I'll be able to roam the 4 seas and 5 continents. No one will be able to stop me. At this time several voices rang in his ears. There were both male and female voices. Old Ji, you've finally come out of seclusion. Tianxing, your strength has improved again during this closed-door cultivation. It's really worthy of celebration. Congratulations on coming out of seclusion, Master. Chapter 3681. Everyone was cultivating in seclusion. They suddenly ended their cultivation and gathered together to wait for him. There must be something important to ask and discuss. Ji Tianxing didn't need to think too much to guess what was going on, so he looked at Qianyu. Did you wake them up? Qianyu didn't hide it and nodded. It was me. Old Ji, you have returned to the dragon realm for a long time and met an old friend. I guess that you must have something to say to everyone, so there was no need to say the rest, everyone understood. Bai Long was full of expectation and asked excitedly, Master, the old friend you met, is it His Majesty Master Dragon Emperor? Master Dragon Emperor is the master of the Heavenly Dragon Continent. When we return to the Heavenly Dragon Continent, we have the strongest backing. In the future in this dragon realm we can do whatever we want. Jiku also smiled and said expectantly, in the blink of an eye, more than 1,000 years have passed. I don't know if the Heavenly Dragon Divine Palace has changed. His Majesty Dragon Emperor still loves to travel the world. Snake Man has to follow and serve him. Tianxing, you have to guard the palace alone again. Even the most gentle and dignified Yun Yao said expectantly, if we really find His Majesty Dragon Emperor, we don't have to travel all over the dragon realm to find Wuhan. With His Majesty Dragon Emperor's power, we will definitely find Wuhan soon, and our family will be reunited. Facing everyone's ardent expectations, Ji Tianxing was silent for a while. He was unwilling to tell the truth and disappoint everyone. But after a long silence he decided to tell everyone the truth. I did meet an old friend, but it was not Master Heavenly Dragon Emperor, but Master's old servant, Snake Man. More than 900 years ago Master left the Dragon Realm and disappeared. There have been rumors in the Dragon Realm that Master has fallen, and his destiny lamp has been extinguished long ago. Today's Heavenly Dragon continent has changed hands. After listening to Ji Tianxing's words and knowing the truth, the smile on everyone's face froze. The excitement and expectation gradually turned into disappointment, heaviness, and nostalgia. Their emotions were also somewhat lost. After a long while, everyone suppressed the grief and sadness in their hearts and sighed. The Grandmaster is a peak divine king whose lifespan is the same as the heavens. How could he possibly fall? I didn't expect so many things to happen in the past 1,000 years. The world is truly unpredictable. Everyone sighed with emotion for a while. Yun Yao looked at Ji Tianxing calmly and asked, Tianxing, although Heavenly Dragon Emperor is missing and is suspected to have died. But fortunately you met the Ophiuchus who is still loyal. Now that you've settled down in Demon City, what are your plans for the future? Ji Tianxing frowned and thought for a moment, then said, more than 1,000 years have passed. I'm not too sure about what happened during this time. Although the Ophiuchus were still loyal to me, and there didn't seem to be any problems at the moment. However, the world was dangerous and he could never trust others easily. Although I'm 90% sure that he's still loyal, I still have to be careful and observe him for a few more years. Yun Yao, Ji Ku and the others nodded in agreement. Ji Tianxing continued, since returning to the Dragon Realm, I've been running around and have no time to rest and cultivate. Since I've settled down in Demon City, I'll stay for a few more years to cultivate, improve my strength and prepare for future plans. After I come out of seclusion, I'll explain to the Ophiuchus about Wuhan's disappearance and ask the Demon Alliance to do their best to find her. The Demon Alliance is one of the top 3 superpowers in the Starsource continent. They should have a lot of spies. Helping us find Wuhan can also save a lot of time and trouble. As for Qianyu, you can't just cultivate like this. Without the inherited talent and cultivation method of the Heavenly Fox clan, it will be difficult for you to break through to the Divine King realm. Therefore you need to stay in Demon City and receive Hu Xinyue's guidance and teaching. And by long when we live here in the future, you have to consult the Ophiuchus and other divine kings of the Dragon Clan. After listening to Ji Tianxing's arrangement, everyone nodded in agreement. Originally he wanted to live in the Profound Pine Palace and let everyone live in the Profound Pine Palace. But everyone said that they would rather stay in the distorted spacetime to cultivate, which would save more time. Anyway, Ji Tianxing wasn't sure if the Ophiuchus was 100% loyal for the time being, and he hadn't thought about what to do next. Therefore he didn't insist and let everyone continue to stay in the distorted spacetime. Well, if you have nothing else, go back and cultivate in seclusion. I'm going to come out of seclusion and meet the Ophiuchus to discuss some things in detail. After comforting everyone, Ji Tianxing left the distorted spacetime. Zoosh. With a flash of divine light, he returned to the study and waved his hand to put away the Jutian 10 Absolutes Tower. He first checked the divine array set up before he went into seclusion and found that there was no abnormality or damage to the divine array. At the same time, during his seclusion, no one had come into contact with this divine array, nor had anyone come close to the secret room. A smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. He felt a little relieved and removed the divine array. He had been in seclusion for a year in the distorted spacetime, but in fact only 7 days had passed in the outside world. Creak, creak, creak. When he pushed open the door of the secret room and walked out of the secret room, the guards on both sides of the door were still in the same posture as before. They didn't move an inch. Seeing him appear, the 2 guards hurriedly bowed. Greetings, young master. Ji Tianxing nodded slightly, indicating that the 2 of them could dispense with the formalities. He asked, has anyone come over during the 7 days that I've been in seclusion? One of the guards hurriedly reported, young master, 2 days ago the Alliance master came to visit. He seemed to have something important to discuss. Seeing that young master was in seclusion, the Alliance master didn't want to disturb you. He only said 1 sentence and left. What did he say? Ji Tianxing raised his eyebrows. The guard hurriedly reported, "The Alliance Master said that after you come out of seclusion, you can go to the study to look for him at any time. He wants to report to you in person." "Got it." Ji Tianxing nodded and walked out of the secret room, heading toward Divine King Luoho's residence. Ji Tianxing had only shown his face once after entering the Myriad Demon Divine Palace. Only a few people knew him. However, the guards guarding the Alliance Master's study were not included in this list. No one stopped him and he successfully stepped into the Alliance Master's study. At this moment, Divine King Luoho was sitting behind his desk. There were two other Divine King experts standing in the study. One of them was Great Elder Xianxia. The other Divine King was a middle-aged man from the Golden Eagle tribe. He had a malicious expression. When Ji Tianxing entered the study, the man with the Golden Eagle was bowing and reporting to Divine King Luoho. After he finished, Divine King Luoho frowned and fell into deep thought. However, when he saw Ji Tianxing, he hurriedly stood up and bowed. "Young Master, your subordinate greets young Master." Xianxia suddenly turned around. When she saw Ji Tianxing, she did not hesitate to bow and greet him as young master. On the other hand, the man with the Golden Eagle was shocked when he saw Divine King Luoho and Xianxia being so respectful. He was stunned for a moment before he reacted and hurriedly bowed. Chapter 3682. Ji Tianxing excused himself. Only then did Divine King Luo, Xianxia, and the man with the Golden Eagle stand up. Xianxia cupped her fists and bowed tactfully. "Lord Alliance Master, I still have some government affairs to deal with. I'll take my leave first." After saying that, she gave the man with the Golden Eagle a look. Only then did the man with the Golden Eagle come back to his senses. He also bowed and took his leave. However, before leaving the study, he could not help but take another look at Ji Tianxing. His gaze and expression were rather complicated. After the two of them left, only Ji Tianxing and Divine King Luo were left in the study. Divine King Luo waved his hand and closed the door of the study. He also activated the protective divine formation. Only then did he bow to Ji Tianxing and say respectfully, "Young Master, you're finally out of seclusion." After saying that, he took the initiative to stand beside the desk and let Ji Tianxing sit at the head of the table. Ji Tianxing smiled and said, "Ophidian, there's no need to care about these complicated formalities. If you have something to say, just say it directly." However, Divine King Luo insisted on standing at the side and let Ji Tianxing sit down. He explained, "Young Master, there's an order of seniority and a difference in seniority. Etiquette cannot be ignored. No matter when or where, you'll always be the young master. This old servant will never dare to overstep." Ji Tianxing sat down at the head of the table. He glanced at him and said with a chuckle, "Etiquette lies in the heart, not in the actions." Divine King Luo was stunned for a moment before he nodded and said, "This old servant will follow the young master's teachings." Ji Tianxing nodded and said, "All right, let's get down to business." Divine King Luo pursed his lips and said in a low voice, "Young master, it's best that you stay in Thousand Demon City for the next few years. Don't show your face in public." "Why?" Ji Tianxing raised his brows and asked with a playful smile, "Are some people jumping out again and shouting to kill me?" Divine King Luo bowed and said, "Young master is wise." Ji Tianxing revealed a puzzled look and analyzed, "However, the Taotai clan has already been crippled by me. The Xianxia clan won't dare to take revenge. The bounty of the 10,000 Demon Alliance should be gone, right? Who else would be so blind as to jump out at this time?" God King Luo said angrily, "It's an order from the Golden Source Dragon Emperor of the Mysterious Paradise." Ji Tianxing was stunned for a moment. Then he came to a sudden realization and sneered, "I understand now. It must be because I've killed so many domain lords along the way and caused the people of Starsource continent to panic. The Golden Origin Dragon Emperor felt that I was too arrogant, openly challenging his authority and causing him to lose face. So he gave the order to kill me to avenge those region lords, right?" Divine King Luo hurriedly nodded and said, "Young lord guessed correctly, that's precisely the case. Our League's intelligence department had secretly investigated the cause. The fact that the domain lords were killed is one of the reasons. The fact that the Taotai clan and many other forces went to the Profound Secrets Grotto is another reason." Ji Tianxing's cold smile deepened and continued, "If I didn't guess wrongly, the Profound Secrets Grotto will definitely condemn me righteously and pin 100 charges on me. In fact, they'll even label me as the scourge and public enemy of Starsource continent, And summon all Divine King powerhouses to besiege and kill me, right? Divine King Luo's eyes revealed a look of admiration and hurriedly nodded and said, "Young Lord is indeed extraordinarily intelligent, exactly the same as Third Elder's investigation result." Pausing for a moment, he suddenly thought of a possibility. His eyes immediately lit up and he asked, "Young Lord expected it long ago and you're so calm and composed. Could it be that you did this on purpose?" Ji Tianqing smiled and explained, "I'm not a savage and bloodthirsty person, why would I do it on purpose? It's just that the Taotai clan pestered me endlessly, and the appearance of the bounty caused various divine kings to come and kill me. Therefore I could only go with the flow and beat them at their own game." Divine King Luo revealed a look of shame and hurriedly bowed and apologized, "Young Lord, please punish me. It was this old servant who was muddle-headed and incompetent to actually let the Myriad Demon Alliance issue a bounty, almost harming Young Lord. Fortunately, Young Lord's strength is formidable, overcoming all difficulties along the way. That's how it didn't cause a great disaster." Ji Tianqing waved his hand and consoled, "Ophidian, you don't have to blame yourself. The whole story of this matter I have a score in my heart. Tao Yongxing asking for help from the Myriad Demon Alliance and discussing the matter of the bounty, it was all head elder Zhou Xian who was responsible for handling it. At that time, you weren't in the Myriad Demon Alliance and also didn't know about this matter. It's pardonable." Divine King Luo revealed a look of gratitude and said, "Young Lord is indeed perceptive to the finest detail. This old servant thanks Young Lord for being tolerant. These few hundred years, this old servant has always been busy searching for Old Lord's traces and rarely asked about the Alliance's affairs, basically leaving it to the several elders and 2 protectors. If this old servant was holding down the fort in the Myriad Demon City, the moment I heard Young Lord's name, I absolutely wouldn't accept any bounty." Although Ji Tianqing was magnanimous, Divine King Luo still had to explain once before he could feel at ease. Ji Tianqing did not pursue the matter and even consoled him with a few words. Divine King Luo no longer discussed this matter and asked full of concern again, "Young Lord, this old servant has something that I don't understand. Why did you have to cause such a huge commotion, stirring up the winds and clouds of the Starsource continent to suddenly change? That Golden Origin Dragon Emperor's strength is unfathomable, ruling over the entire Starsource continent. The forces under his command are incomparably powerful. Why did you want to offend him? Could it be that you have some enmity with the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor?" Ji Tianqing looked at him and answered with a question, "Why? You have friendly relations with the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor?" "Of course not." Divine King Luo immediately explained, "In the recent few hundred years he spent most of his time in close seclusion. This old servant has never met him before. Moreover, this old servant established the Myriad Demon Alliance in his territory, already threatening his position. He and this old servant only have apprehension and hostility. How can we possibly have friendly relations?" Ji Tianqing nodded slightly and said, "That's more like it. The reason why I stirred up the winds and clouds and alarmed the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor is actually related to my search for my son. 12 years ago when I was traveling in the Outer Realm, I was suddenly attacked by a powerhouse. Following that, he made up a story to explain Ji Wuhan's disappearance." 7 minutes later, Divine King Luo finished listening to Ji Tianqing's explanation before finally understanding the whole story. His expression was gloomy and grave, his eyes vaguely showing anger as he said in a low voice, "A golden dragon claw snatched Young Lord away? A dragon race peak Divine King? In this case, Young Lord is most likely in the dragon realm. And there are only so many peak Divine Kings in the dragon race. The scope of investigation is not large. Rather, that Golden Origin Dragon Emperor is actually so arrogant and hateful. Even if Old Lord has been missing for many years, his gatekeeper should not be so frivolous, looking down on Old Lord. Mysterious Grotto Heaven's people should not humiliate and injure Young Lord even more. This enmity is sowed between us and Mysterious Grotto Heaven. No matter what, we must teach Mysterious Grotto Heaven a lesson." This matter involved the Heavenly Dragon Emperor and Ji Tianqing. Divine King Luo was also filled with righteous indignation, unable to restrain his anger. Although he and the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor were wary of each other in the past, there was no connection or enmity between them. But from today onwards, the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor was his enemy. The more he thought about it, the angrier he became. He bowed to Ji Tianqing and said in a sonorous tone, "Young lord, the entire Starsource continent is denouncing you now. Who knows how many Divine King powerhouses want to kill you. From now on you can stay in Myriad Demon City and rest at ease. Leave this matter to this old servant to deal with." Chapter 3683. But you are only an avatar after all. Your true body is still in the outer realm. If the Gold Source Dragon Emperor really attacks, how can you withstand it? Ji Tianqing looked at Luoho Divine King calmly and asked. Luoho Divine King smiled and said confidently, "Young master, don't worry. As long as you stay in Demon City, the Gold Source Dragon Emperor will not personally attack. After all, the Demon Alliance's current strength is second only to the Xuanji Grotto. They have infiltrated more than half of the Astral Source continent. If the Gold Source Dragon Emperor really attacks Demon City, he will completely fall out with the Demon Alliance. It will be a battle to the death. At that time, the entire Astral Source continent will be in chaos and might even fall apart. The Gold Source Dragon Emperor will definitely not be able to bear the consequences." Ji Tianqing nodded and said, "It seems like you have poured a lot of effort into the Demon Alliance over the past few hundred years. Since that is the case, I will stay in Demon City and recuperate for a few years. It just so happens that I have been running around outside and have many things to do." "That is good." Luoho God King also revealed a gratified smile. He hurriedly bowed and said, "Young master, in the future, just treat the Myriad Demon City as your own home. You have met Great Elder Xianxia. That Ao Jinying is the third elder of the Alliance. He is in charge of intelligence. These two elders are trustworthy people. You can instruct them if you need anything." Ji Tianqing thought for a while and asked, "Ao Jinying? The one who was the captain of the guards in the Heavenly Dragon Divine Palace?" "Young master, you have a good memory. It is him." Luoho Divine King smiled and nodded. He continued, "Young master, I will not disturb you any longer. I will take my leave first. I will arrange for people to find out about the young master's whereabouts. Go." Ji Tianqing waved his hand and gestured for Luoho Divine King to leave. Luoho Divine King bowed and turned to leave the study. Ji Tianqing sat on the big chair and looked at Luoho Divine King's back as he pondered. In this life he had experienced too many dangers and dangers. He had also seen too many schemes and evil people. He would not easily trust anyone, not even his master's loyal old servant, Ophiuchus. Although Ophiuchus's performance was impeccable, his trust in Ophiuchus was currently only 80%. Whether he was loyal or not, time was the only way to prove it. In the back garden of God King Rahu's residence, Xianxia and Ao Jinying walked through the garden side by side and were about to get busy with their own affairs. Xianxia glanced at Ao Jinying several times and couldn't help but ask, "Third Elder, ever since you came out of the study room, you have been absent-minded. You seem to have a lot on your mind." Ao Jinying hesitated for a moment before asking tentatively, "Great Elder, do you know who that young master is? Why is Lord Alliance Master so respectful towards him?" Xianxia looked around and showed a hint of vigilance. She replied with her divine sense, "That is young Master Long Tian. He killed many experts of the Taotai and Xiongqi clans. The bounty issued by our alliance is to kill him. Who would have thought that he was actually an old acquaintance of the Alliance Master? For some reason, the Alliance Master actually considered himself a servant, and was very respectful to young Master Long. This matter is extremely secretive. I hope that Third Elder will keep it a secret." After saying that, Xianxia looked at Ao Jinying. Unexpectedly, Ao Jinying was already stunned. His body seemed to have been petrified, and his face was filled with shock and disbelief. "Young Master Long Tian? It's actually the young master. After more than 1,500 years he finally returned." Ao Jinying's expression was complicated. He was shocked and happy as he muttered to himself. Seeing his big reaction, Xianxia frowned in confusion and asked, "Third Elder, what's wrong with you? Did you just say, young master? Do you also know that young Master Long?" However, Ao Jinying's heart was in turmoil. He was so emotional that he didn't hear what Xianxia said. He rubbed his hands anxiously and muttered emotionally, "The young master is finally back. I have to go and pay my respects to the young master." "No. Lord Alliance Master didn't give any orders, nor did he explain to me. If I rush over, will I disturb the young master? But if I don't go, won't I be disrespectful to the young master?" For a moment, Ao Jinying was in a dilemma and didn't know what to do. Seeing him like this, Hu Xinyue was very intelligent and naturally guessed the reason. She was about to persuade Ao Jinying when God King Luoho came to the garden and said in a dignified tone, "The two of you come here. I have something to tell you." Hu Xinyue and Ao Jinying hurriedly walked to the garden's arched door and bowed to God King Luoho. "Lord Alliance Master, please give your orders." God King Luoho glanced at Ao Jinying and ordered in a dignified manner, "Young Master Long Tian is an old acquaintance of mine. Great Elder may not know, but Ao Jinying knows that young Master Long is the beloved disciple of the old master, the only disciple that he values the most. Therefore young Master Long is my young master." After receiving God King Luoho's personal confirmation, Ao Jinying was filled with excitement. He hurriedly nodded and said, "That's right. He is the young master." Hu Xinyue also hurriedly nodded and cupped her hands. "Lord Alliance Master, please don't worry. I will inform the other elders, branch masters and deacons. In the future when everyone sees young Master Long, they will treat him as the Lord Alliance Master. No one will offend him." God King Luoho nodded in satisfaction and continued, "In the future when I am not present, everything will be done according to the young master's orders. No one is to disobey. Otherwise I will punish them severely." "We understand." Hu Xinyue and Ao Jinying nodded at the same time. God King Luoho waved his hand and indicated for Hu Xinyue to leave. "Great Elder, please do as you wish. Third Elder, stay behind. I have important matters to instruct you." Hu Xinyue hurriedly bowed and took her leave. Ao Jinying stayed behind and asked expectantly, "Lord Alliance Master, please tell me what you need me to do." God King Luoho sighed and said earnestly, "The young master's son has gone missing. We need to do our best to find him." Not long after God King Luoho left the study, Ji Tianxing returned to Profound Pine Palace and entered a secret room to cultivate. Previously he had been running around and killing. Now he finally had the time to cultivate peacefully in the Myriad Demon City. He indeed had many things to do. His future plans had to be carried out step by step. First he wanted to increase his strength. He still needed to refine the remaining 39 Godhead fragments. In the future when he reached the peak of the 6th stage and tried to break through to the upper God King stage, he could take the 9-turn stellar elixir and borrow the power of the elixir. Second, Qianyu was stuck at the peak of the monarch God realm. She still needed Hu Xinyue's guidance to successfully break through to the God King stage. Third, he needed to forge the Burial of Heaven sword. The matter of improving its quality should also be put on the agenda. Although he still lacked a lot of refining materials. Now that he was in the Myriad Demon League, even if he lacked some materials, he could ask the Myriad Demon League to gather them. It would save him a lot of time. Although those refining materials were precious, the Myriad Demon League was very powerful. It should not be difficult to gather them. Wonderful Book House. Chapter 3684. In the following month, the Demon City was as peaceful as ever. However, under the instructions of Luoho Divine King, Hu Xinyue told many elders, leaders and deacons about the young master. Although most people had not seen Ji Tianxing, they already knew that Long Tianxing was there. However, they already knew that young Master Long Tian was in the 10,000 Demon Divine Palace. They had to respect and protect the young master like how they treated their alliance master. As for the true identity of Long Tianxing, Hu Xinyue did not reveal too much to prevent the news from spreading. After all, Ophiuchus changed his name to Luoho Divine King because he did not want to attract attention. Ao Jinying, the third elder, was in charge of the intelligence department. He usually monitored the Star Source continent and grasped the information of various parts of the continent. In this month, the intelligence department was even busier. Finding a young man who had disappeared more than 10 years ago, but was not of the demon clan, became the top priority of the intelligence department. The spies, and informants of the demon clan in various regions of the continent were all active. Of course, the people in the intelligence department did not need to know who the young man was and why they were looking for him. Ao Jinying also kept it a secret. On the other side, Hu Xinyue was not idle either. Before Ji Tianxing went into seclusion to cultivate, he persuaded Qianyu to let Hu Xinyue teach her. With regards to Ji Tianxing's request, Hu Xinyue naturally did not reject it at all. She even happily accepted it. Not only because Ji Tianxing was the young master but also because Qianyu was her clansman, the fifth heavenly fox. Even without Ji Tianxing's reminder, Hu Xinyue took special care of Qianyu. After spending some time with Qianyu, she liked Qianyu from the bottom of her heart. She was especially patient and meticulous when teaching her. She even spent a lot of resources and treasures to help Qianyu cultivate the Heavenly Fox clan's theurgy. As for Ji Tianxing, he stayed in the distorted spacetime and refined the Godhead fragments to improve his strength. A month had passed in the outside world. He had been in seclusion in the distorted spacetime for more than 4 years. In these 4 years he first swallowed 39 Godhead fragments and cultivated the Heaven Punishment Divine Art for 2 years. After that he left a year to cultivate his Divine Tao Foundation, cultivate and comprehend various theurgy and secret techniques, and refine the primordial chaos bell. After Tao Yongxing perished, the chaos primordial bell became an ownerless object. That was a king-grade supreme-grade divine artifact, the Taotai clan's guardian divine artifact. Of course he had to control it. When he ended his closed-door cultivation, his strength had also improved by leaps and bounds, explosively increasing by more than 3 times. He had already reached the peak of the 6th level of the Divine King Realm. He was not far from the 7th level of the Divine King Realm. However, even though the 2 realms were only separated by a fine line, there were still shackles obstructing them, and it wasn't that easy to break through. He thought about it for a long time and decided to settle down for a while. Once his cultivation base and foundation were stabilized, he would consume the 9-turn stellar rhyme pill and break through to the 7th level of the God King realm. In addition, there was another reason why his strength had increased so quickly. Before going into seclusion to cultivate, he even took out a few trillion worth of cultivation resources and injected them into the 5 elements world through the Heaven Mending Pearl. Before this, he had used the World Destroyer sword many times and absorbed a lot of world energy. The 5 elemental world had been slowly growing and strengthening. He had absorbed a large amount of the world's power, so its growth speed had naturally slowed down. Now that he had 20 trillion resources, he naturally had to allocate a portion to nurture the 5 elements world. He and the 5 elements world were one. As the 5 elements world strengthened, his strength would also increase. Those trillions of cultivation resources were transformed into pure divine power through the Heaven Mending Pearl and injected into the 5 elements world. In these years, the 5 elements world had changed greatly. Not only did the world expand, but all living things flourished. Divine light anomalies often appeared between heaven and earth, spiritual rain fell, and there were situations where heaven and earth's spiritual energy erupted. The entire 5 elements world had become a holy land for cultivation. Countless races multiplied and grew stronger, and geniuses and powerhouses emerged in large numbers. And these were naturally anomalies brought about by those trillions of resources. After finishing his cultivation, Ji Tianxing's mind entered the Heaven Mending Pearl to investigate the situation of the 5 elements world. What made him feel gratified was that after spending a few trillion worth of cultivation resources, the 5 elements world had indeed expanded by 50%. As the world grew larger, the world energy also became more vigorous. However, he then fell into deep thought, and his eyes revealed a worried expression. A total of 8 trillion worth of cultivation resources were used to expand the 5 elements world by 50%. If I want the 5 elements world to double in size, wouldn't I need to consume 16 trillion worth of resources? If I want the 5 elements world to continue growing and restore it to an eternal existence, wouldn't I need to consume countless resources? Previously, Ji Tianxing still thought that he was too rich with 20 trillion worth of resources. But after this incident, he suddenly realized that even with 20 trillion worth of cultivation resources, it was not enough for the 5 elements world to consume. He could not be complacent. He still had to think of ways to plunder more cultivation resources before he could continue to nurture the 5 elements world. Now, the various forces are all afraid of my reputation and dare not assassinate me. If I stay in the 1,000 Demon City, the forces of Xuanji Grotto will also not dare to invade. If I'm safe and sound, where can I go to plunder cultivation resources? Ji Tianxing furrowed his brows and pondered silently. Suddenly he thought of something and his eyes immediately lit up. Oh right, the Taotai clan's star-devouring grotto. Tao Yongxing was killed by me, and there are only 2 Taotai clan elders left. More than half of the powerhouses are dead or injured. The current Taotai clan already exists in name only, and their forces are incomparably weak. But the star-devouring grotto's mineral resources are abnormally rich. Ji Tianxing's mind became active, and the idea of killing his way into the star-devouring grotto to plunder cultivation resources emerged. Anyway, the Taotai clan had a blood feud with him. He did not feel guilty about plundering the resources of the star-devouring grotto. However, before going to the star-devouring grotto, I have to inform Ophiuchus. A month has passed in the outside world. I wonder what's the situation now? Did Ophiuchus, Ao Genieing and the others find out about Wuhan? Thinking of this, Ji Tianxing left the distorted spacetime and returned to the secret chamber. He walked out of the secret chamber, intending to find Ophiuchus to ask about the situation. In the central region of the Star Source continent within Xuanji Grotto, in the depths of the vast and magnificent Xuanji Grotto, there was a group of magnificent palaces built against the mountain. This was the cave abode of the Gold Origin Dragon Emperor and his subordinates. At the peak of the towering mountain, there was the most majestic and magnificent golden palace. It was the Gold Origin Dragon Emperor's cave abode. At this moment, the magnificent meeting hall was filled with a solemn and dignified aura. A middle-aged man from the dragon tribe wearing a crimson long robe and a luxurious crown was sitting on a large gilded throne. This man was tall and burly with a broad face and a wide forehead. He had a horn on his head and golden dragon whiskers on his chin. He exuded a dignified and holy aura. He was the ruler of the Star Source continent, the famous Gold Origin Dragon Emperor. As his original form was a gold dragon, many experts secretly called him the Gold Origin Dragon Emperor. In the clean and bright hall, there were 18 golden armored guards standing on both sides. They were all Upper Divine Lord experts. In the middle of the hall, there were 5 Upper Divine Kings with dignified auras. They were the Gold Origin Dragon Emperor's right-hand men and trusted subordinates. Book Guest Residence Reading Website. Chapter 3685. These 5 high-level God Kings were at the 8th and 9th level of the God King realm. 2 of them were 9th-level God Kings and they were the strongest subordinates of the Gold Source Dragon Emperor. One of them was the general manager of the internal affairs, the Heartless God King. The other was the Grand Marshal who commanded all the domain lords of the Star Source continent, the War Dragon King. The other 3 were 8th-level God Kings and they were the God Generals of the Gold Source Dragon Emperor. One of them was in charge of guarding the entrance of the profound grotto heaven while the other 2 were in charge of gathering intelligence and supervising the various regions. Even though the 5 of them were highly respected in the Stellar Origin continent and they were respected and worshipped by billions of living beings. But at this moment the Gold Source Dragon Emperor was enraged and the hall was filled with a solemn atmosphere. The 5 of them were anxious. After a long silence, the Gold Source Dragon Emperor reprimanded them. I have been in seclusion to cultivate and seek a breakthrough. For the past few hundred years, I have trusted you and handed over the authority to you. But what about you? You have disappointed me too much. The Heartless Deity King, the Battle Dragon King, and the others all bowed and lowered their heads, not daring to argue. The Gold Source Dragon Emperor was still angry and he continued to reprimand them. I have just come out of seclusion and you have already caused trouble. An unknown dragon clan brat was actually able to turn the entire northwest regions upside down, causing a reign of terror and bloodshed. The Taotai and Xianxia clans were heavily injured and so many domain lords and god kings were killed by that kid. What are you doing? Why didn't you kill him and let the situation worsen? It was obvious that Long Tian's actions in the northwestern regions had caused half of the continent to be in a state of panic and rumors to spread everywhere. This was undoubtedly a slap to the Gold Source Dragon Emperor's face and the profound grotto heaven's dignity. The black-robed God King who was in charge of gathering intelligence quickly apologized and explained with fear, Your Majesty, please calm down. This matter was initially between Long Tian and the Xianxia and Taotai clans. But later on, the Taotai clan's patriarch Tao Yongxing contacted the Myriad Demon Alliance and asked them to issue a bounty. The experts of the northwestern regions coveted the sky-high bounty and went to kill Long Tian one after another, which led to this tragedy. We didn't see it coming and we didn't dare to stop the 10,000 Demon Alliance. Myriad Demon Alliance? The Golden Origin Dragon Emperor was even more enraged when he heard those 3 words. His bell-sized eyes were filled with rage and killing intent. Bastard! The Star Source continent is my territory. What is the Myriad Demon Alliance? How could the Myriad Demon Alliance rise all of a sudden if it weren't for the few of you who neglected your duties in the past hundreds of years? Now, the Myriad Demon Alliance is so powerful that it can even be ranked in the top 3. It is a threat to me. This emperor has become the laughingstock of the entire continent. Don't you all deserve to die? Seeing the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor's rage, the 5 god kings were suppressed by his aura. They immediately knelt on the ground and kowtowed to beg for forgiveness. The Heartless Deity Emperor and the Battle Dragon Emperor both glared at the Black-Robed Deity Emperor and scolded angrily, "Idiot! How can you mention the Myriad Demon Alliance to the Dragon Emperor? You're really rubbing it in. You clearly know that the Myriad Demon Alliance is a thorn in His Majesty's side. Really?" The Black-Robed Deity Emperor was filled with fear. He kept kowtowing and begging for forgiveness. After a while, the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor's anger calmed down. He asked in a deep voice, "That Long Tian, you have investigated for more than a month. Have you found any traces of him?" The Battle Dragon Emperor was afraid that the Black-Robed Deity Emperor would say something wrong again. He quickly reported, "Your Majesty, we have already issued an order to mobilize all the territorial lords and spies in the north to search for Long Tian. However, the strange thing is that even after so many god kings and spies have searched for a month, they still haven't found any traces of Long Tian. The last time he appeared was a month ago in the Azure Snow region's Guiyan mountain range. At that time, a few god kings from the Myriad Demon Alliance were trying to kill him. However, no one knows the exact outcome. Since then, Long Tian has disappeared without a trace and hasn't appeared since." The Golden Origin Dragon Emperor frowned and said doubtfully, "If that's the case, Long Tian's disappearance is related to the Myriad Demon Alliance. However, no matter what, you have to use the Azure Snow region as the center and search the surrounding regions. Once you have any news, report to me immediately." After speaking, the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor waved his hand and gestured for everyone to leave. However, the Heartless God King stepped forward and bowed. He reported, "Your Majesty, I have another matter to report." The Golden Origin Dragon Emperor raised his eyebrows and asked expressionlessly, "What is it?" The few god kings who were about to leave also stopped and listened quietly. The Heartless God King reported calmly, "A few months ago, a young man from the Dragon Tribe brought a god monarch from the Rock Tribe to the Grotto Heaven's entrance to meet your Majesty. That young man from the Dragon Tribe claimed to be Long Tian, the disciple of Dragon Emperor Feng Tian. He said that he had something important to discuss with you. He even mentioned Anshang and seemed to have a close relationship with him. As such, the 4 divine generals fought with Long Tian to drive him away. In the end, Long Tian severely injured 2 god generals and I personally injured him. I wanted to capture him, but I didn't expect him to fall into the chaotic void. I had no choice but to drop the matter." Hearing this, the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor's face darkened. He shouted coldly, "Don't mention that traitor Anshang again." The Heartless God King hurriedly bowed and begged for forgiveness. The Golden Origin Dragon Emperor didn't pursue the matter. He frowned and asked, "Long Tian, the disciple of the Heavenly Dragon Emperor? Now that you mention it, I do have some impression of him." The Sky Sealing Dragon Emperor was the same as the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor. They were both official titles. The various races in the Dragon Realm would address him as such to show respect. However, in private, many experts would address him as the Heavenly Dragon Emperor or the Golden Dragon Emperor. The Heartless God King continued, "When Long Tian fell into the chaotic void, I thought he would definitely die. Therefore I didn't pursue him. I didn't expect him to survive and wreak havoc on the Star Source continent. How despicable." The Golden Origin Dragon Emperor frowned and asked, "Heartless, are you sure that Long Tian is the same Long Tian that you want to kill?" The Heartless God King nodded and said confidently, "After many investigations, I can confirm that they are the same person." The Golden Origin Dragon Emperor narrowed his eyes and said, "Since that's the case, all the more we can't spare him. For the past few hundred years, I didn't care about government affairs and neglected to control the entire continent. In the end, you useless trash allowed the Myriad Demon Alliance to rise up. Now, my reputation has been affected and I don't know how many people are criticizing me in secret. Since this Long Tian dared to provoke this emperor's dignity, then he must be killed as an example to others. So what if he is the disciple of the Heavenly Dragon Emperor? I want to kill him to establish my authority and let the world know that this is the consequence of challenging me. Since he has disappeared, I will issue a reward in my name. Whoever can provide me with Long Tian's whereabouts and clues will be rewarded handsomely." The Heartless Divine King, the War Dragon King, and the others bowed in unison and shouted in unison, "His Majesty the Dragon Emperor is wise. We will do our best to share the burden of His Majesty." Chapter 3686. Xianxia Tribe, Nebula Grotto Heaven. Among the vast mountains and rivers, flowers were in full bloom and trees were lush. In the deepest part of the Grotto Heaven, there were many buildings and palaces built in a majestic valley. The majestic golden palace that stood at the peak of the 3 kilometers mountain was the residence of the patriarch Zhou Xian and the meeting hall. 2 months ago the Xianxia tribe was in danger. The Left Guardian and 3 elders led a group of elites from the Blood Massacre Hall to kill Long Tian at the invitation of the Taotai tribe. However, they were all killed. After that, Zhou Xian personally led the Right Guardian and a group of elites to fight Long Tian together with the Taotai tribe leader. However, they were still heavily injured. The series of attacks cast a huge shadow over the Xianxia tribe, causing everyone in the tribe to panic. However, 2 months had passed, and the haze that covered the Nebula Grotto Heaven had dissipated. The 5,000 Xianxia tribe members also let go of their worries and went back to their normal lives. Zhou Xian and the Right Guardian were heavily injured and had fled back to the Nebula Grotto Heaven, embarrassing the Xianxia tribe. However, the news that came back made the Xianxia tribe members praise the wisdom of their tribe leader. This was because the Taotai tribe leader Tao Yongxing had been killed and the high priest had also fallen. The once glorious Taotai tribe was beaten to the ground just like that and their power fell. The Taotai tribe would definitely not be able to dominate the world in the future. Even protecting the Taotai tribe would become very difficult. On the other hand, Zhou Xian, the Xianxia tribe leader, decisively and timely retreated, preserving his strength and life. Although the Xianxia tribe had suffered losses, they were not fatal. This was a great fortune. Zhou Xian did not mention anything about Long Tian again, and he would not reveal the humiliating oath to the heavenly Tao. However, everyone knew that Long Tian was an expert that the Xianxia tribe could not afford to offend. If they continued, the Xianxia tribe would end up like the Taotai tribe. That was an outcome that no one wanted to see. Like now, enduring for a while and settling for a long-term plan was what a wise person would do. It was currently noon. Zhou Xian and the Right Guardian, who had been in seclusion for 2 months, had successfully come out. Their injuries had healed and their mental states had also recovered to their peak. Their strength was not affected at all. As the good news spread, the thousands of clansmen cheered and jumped for joy. Their hearts felt even more secure. At this time, clan leader Zhou Xian summoned many elders and deacons to the conference hall of the Divine Palace to discuss important matters. Although the ordinary clansmen were not qualified to attend the meeting, everyone was paying attention to the meeting hall. Everyone knew that something big was about to happen. Moreover, it was highly likely that it was related to Long Tian and the Taotai clan. Zhou Xian, dressed in a blood-red robe and a purple cloak, sat majestically at the head of the table in the spacious and bright meeting hall. The protector of the right stood on the steps in front of the throne, his face expressionless. 6 elders and 18 deacons stood in 2 rows in the main hall. They stood with their hands by their sides, looking quiet and solemn. The air was filled with a heavy and austere aura. Many elders and deacons were guessing in their hearts. Although the clan leader wasn't angry or murderous, his expression was grave. Could it be that he had recovered from his injuries and wanted to take revenge on Long Tian? However, Long Tian could kill Tao Yongxing and the Taotai clan's high priest. Even the clan leader and right protector of the right weren't his opponents. How could they take revenge? Moreover, Long Tian had stirred up trouble in half of the Starsource continent. Even Xianxia Grotto Heaven was chasing after him, but he had disappeared without a trace. If they wanted to take revenge on Long Tian, they had to find him first. Just as everyone's thoughts were in a mess and uneasy, Zhou Xian finally spoke. The poison in the right protector and I have been cured and our injuries have recovered. After coming out of seclusion, I have learned about the situation in the various regions in the northwest and understood the situation. I know that you and your clansmen are all wondering if I will take revenge on Long Tian. The answer is no. Although my face and dignity are important, they can't be compared to the foundation of my clan that has lasted for tens of thousands of years. As long as I can protect the Nebula Grotto Heaven and the foundation passed down by my ancestors, even if I have to die, I am willing to do it. Hearing Zhou Xian's clear answer, Many elders and deacons heaved a sigh of relief. At the same time, Xueshang's righteous words filled them with admiration and respect. Xueshang continued, I am not afraid of battle, but I am judging the situation and looking at the big picture. The Taotai clan leader Tao Yongxing is a living example. He only cared about his own face and ignored the life and death of his clansmen. In the end, it caused a tragedy. Now Tao Yongxing, the high priest, and a few elders have been killed by Long Tian. The huge Taotai clan is only left with 2 elders, a few deacons, and 200 to 300 elite experts. Tao Yongxing is stubborn. He probably never thought that the Taotai clan would fall into such a situation. Hearing this, a few elders and deacons began to whisper to each other. Some nodded and agreed with Xueshang's words. Xueshang's lips curled into a sneer and he said in a playful tone, Second elder has already inquired about the relevant news. It is said that more than half of the Taotai clan's experts have fallen, and now everyone is in a state of panic. This news is not only known to us, but also to many top forces in the various regions in the northwest. We are in an alliance with the Taotai clan, but those forces are all hungry wolves that are hibernating. In the past, the Taotai clan was powerful, and those forces were obedient on the surface and did not dare to be rash. But now, I heard that there are a few forces that are gathering elite experts and preparing to kill their way into the star-devouring grotto heaven and snatch the Taotai clan's 10,000 years of foundation. Many elders and deacons immediately understood what he meant. Immediately, someone stood up and took the initiative to suggest. Clan leader, such a heaven-sent opportunity, how can we miss it? Yes. The resources in the star-devouring grotto heaven are rich and coveted. We would rather occupy it ourselves than let those forces take advantage of us. The Taotai clan has no leader and no expert to hold down the fort. It is the best opportunity for us to enter the star-devouring grotto heaven. Clan leader, please do not hesitate. We will immediately gather the elites and kill our way into the star-devouring grotto heaven. Haha. As long as clan leader and right protector take action, those trash from the Taotai clan will definitely surrender and beg for mercy. They will hand over the star-devouring grotto heaven. For a time the hall was noisy. All the elders and deacons were full of anticipation. Xueshang waved his hand and pretended to be serious. Bastards! What are you talking about? Our clan and the Taotai clan are allies and we are like brothers. How can we do such a thing? As soon as he said that, many elders and deacons were stunned. Their faces were full of shock. Clan leader, what do you mean? Why am I confused? Clan leader, are we going to sit back and do nothing, and let those forces take over the star-devouring grotto heaven? Xueshang stood up and looked down at everyone. He said in a playful tone, those forces are ambitious. They want to take over the star-devouring grotto heaven and harm the people of the Taotai clan. As brothers of the Taotai clan, of course, we have to uphold justice and enter the star-devouring grotto heaven to help them resist the invasion. Chapter 3687. Xueshang's words were righteous and impassioned. Those who did not know him would think that he was hot-blooded and righteous. A few deacons who could not wrap their heads around the situation had such thoughts. They frowned and looked puzzled. However, most of the elders and deacons immediately understood what Xueshang meant. They laughed proudly and nodded in agreement. Clan leader is right. Clan leader is wise. We are not like those bandits. We are going to uphold justice and save the Taotai tribe. That's right. Those forces are the enemies of the invasion. We are the embodiment of justice. When the time comes, let's see who dares to stop us. These elders and deacons were all scheming and cunning people. Of course, they knew that entering the star-devouring grotto heaven under this banner would bring them many benefits. Not to mention that the Xianxia tribe stood on the side of justice and prevented the people from criticizing them. If the Gold Origin Dragon Emperor came to question them after occupying the star-devouring grotto heaven, the Xianxia tribe would have a legitimate reason to occupy it legally. Only by obtaining the Gold Origin Dragon Emperor's approval would the star-devouring grotto heaven be in the hands of the Xianxia tribe forever. Unlike those top forces, even if they killed their way into the star-devouring grotto heaven, they could only snatch the resources and escape. If they dared to occupy the star-devouring grotto heaven, the Gold Origin Dragon Emperor would not forgive them. After a while, when everyone had finished their discussion and calmed down, Xueshang waved his sleeves and gave an order. Pass down my order. Gather the warriors of our tribe and the elites of the blood slaughter hall. Immediately prepare for war. Tonight at midnight we will set off. The elders and deacons bowed and accepted the order. They hurriedly left the meeting hall to carry out the order. Dark water region in the middle of the Black Sea. The myriad demon city was as peaceful as ever. In the myriad demon divine palace, there were only two people talking in Alliance Master Luoho's study. Ji Tianxing sat at the head of the table. Luoho's supreme being stood opposite him and bowed slightly. Ji Tianxing gestured for him to sit down and talk. However, Luoho's supreme being insisted on standing. He maintained a respectful attitude and was ready to listen to orders. Since he was willing to do so, Ji Tianxing did not force him. He let him be. Ophiuchus, have you found any news or whereabouts of Wuhan? God King Rahu bowed and answered, Third Elder and all of the spies and informants of our alliance are doing everything they can to investigate and search. But very unfortunately, the matter involved the dragon race's peak divine kings. The investigation was rather complicated and troublesome. As of now, there was no news about the little master. Young master, please be patient. This matter cannot be completed in a short period of time. Ji Tianxing had already expected this result. He nodded and said, Tell Ao Jinying to continue the investigation. If you can find any clues, I will reward you handsomely. God King Rahu nodded. This old servant understands. I'll thank the young master on behalf of Third Elder. Ji Tianxing stopped discussing this topic and asked, Ophiuchus, what do you think of the current star-devouring paradise? God King Rahu replied with a calm expression. Although the star-devouring paradise is not large, its environment and structure are special, causing the resources in the paradise to be abnormally rich. In the past, the Taotai clan's power was at its peak, and the other forces did not dare to covet it. And now, 80% of the Taotai clan's experts have fallen. They are weak and in a state of panic. Ao Jinying has already found out that the top forces of the Northwest region are drooling over the star-devouring paradise and are ready to make a move. Just 2 days ago, several top forces have already gathered a large number of troops and elite experts and are rushing to the star-devouring paradise, preparing to attack. After a pause, he added, If it were in the past, our alliance would not interfere in this matter due to our status and reputation, let alone occupy the star-devouring paradise. Once the Myriad Demon Alliance's reputation is destroyed, it will be extremely difficult to rebuild its prestige and public trust. However, if the young master is interested in the star-devouring paradise, this old servant will immediately gather a large number of troops and experts to help the young master take it. God King Rahu is clever. Of course, he could guess that Ji Tianxing would not mention the star-devouring paradise for no reason. Ji Tianxing waved his hand and dissuaded, Ophiuchus, you established the Myriad Demon Alliance and spent hundreds of years of effort to achieve today's achievements. You can't ruin the Myriad Demon Alliance's reputation and prestige just for the star-devouring paradise. After all, the Myriad Demon Alliance's existence has a more important mission. God King Rahu frowned and asked doubtfully, Young master, what do you mean? Ji Tianxing said indifferently, I have a lot of things to do and lack a lot of cultivation resources and ores. Therefore, I must get the resources and ores in the star-devouring paradise. However, the Myriad Demon Alliance's people must not appear. I can handle this matter myself. God King Rahu's expression changed and he hurriedly dissuaded, Young master, you can't do that. Just last night, the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor of the Xuanji Wonderland issued a decree, offering a great reward for your whereabouts. Now half of the God King experts of the Star Source continent have gathered in the Northwest region and are frantically searching for your whereabouts. Once you appear in the star-devouring paradise, you will be besieged and killed by countless experts. No matter how important the star-devouring paradise's resources are, they are not as important as your safety. Ji Tianxing waved his hand and chuckled, It's not that serious. Don't worry too much. Without a peak divine king personally taking action just based on those ordinary divine kings, they also wish to kill me? Moreover, I won't appear in broad daylight. Of course, I will use concealment methods and act quietly. This. God King Rahu hesitated. He knew that Ji Tianxing would not change his mind easily once he made up his mind. Therefore he advised again, Young master, you have made up your mind. This old servant can't stop you. However, this old servant has a request. You must bring more people with you to ensure your safety. The left and right protectors are overseeing the myriad demon city. They have to maintain the defensive divine formation and cannot leave for the time being. However, this old servant will send the Great Elder, Second Elder, Fourth Elder and Fifth Elder, as well as a few heavenly kings to follow you. Ji Tianxing had been in the Myriad Demon Alliance for so long. He had some understanding of the Myriad Demon Alliance's power and resources. However, those who could hold the position of Elder were all high-level God Kings and had some shrewdness and methods. As for those mid-level God Kings who were good at killing and fighting and not good at scheming, they were usually conferred the title of Heavenly King. The Myriad Demon Alliance had 19 Heavenly Kings. They were all fierce generals who could hold their own. However, Ji Tianxing waved his hand again and refused. I was just saying that I will conceal my whereabouts and act quietly. If you send so many God Kings to follow me, won't you be exposed faster? At that time, even the Myriad Demon Alliance's reputation will be damaged. Won't the losses outweigh the gains? This. God King Rahu was at a loss. He smiled bitterly and said, "But if I don't send more people, this old servant will not be at ease." After a moment of silence, he suddenly thought of something and immediately had an idea. "Young master, how about this? This old servant will hand over the matters of the alliance to the Great Elder and the left and right protectors. This old servant will personally accompany you to the star-devouring paradise. How about it?" Chapter 3688. Although Luoho Divine King's main body was in the starry sky, what was left in Thousand Demon City was only an avatar of his. But this avatar also had 50% of the main body's strength. It was still a genuine peak Divine King. Ordinary 9th stage Divine Kings might not be able to defeat him. Ji Tianxing only considered for a moment before he nodded and agreed to Luoho Divine King's suggestion. Without further ado, Luoho Divine King did not want to waste any time. He hurriedly went to look for Xianxia and the left and right protectors to give them some instructions. Half an hour later, he was done with his preparations. At this time, Ji Tianxing was also done with his preparations. After the two of them met up, they quietly left Thousand Demon City and flew towards the south. Luoho Divine King took out a king-level upper-grade divine ship. It carried him and Ji Tianxing and sped high up in the sky. Its speed was as fast as flowing light. Within the divine ship, Ji Tianxing sat in the living room drinking tea and resting. From time to time he would chat with Luoho Divine King. "Ophiuchus, I see that your Thousand Demon City suppresses the entire Black Sea and gathers millions of miles of spiritual energy. It can be considered a cultivation sacred ground. Why don't you set up a teleportation array in Thousand Demon City? In this way it will be more convenient for the Alliance members to go in and out." Luoho Divine King sat cross-legged on a jade futon in the control room. As he controlled the divine ship, he answered, "Young Lord may not know, but this old servant has actually considered this matter before. There are pros and cons to setting up a teleportation array in the city. The pros are naturally that it is convenient to go in and out. But in that case, if there are spies, traitors in the alliance, or if they are bribed by external enemies, it will cause unforeseen chaos. Moreover, if a top force invades, the teleportation array will also become an uncertain factor." Ji Tianxing smiled and said, "You are still as cautious and suspicious as before. You would rather use the old-fashioned method to layer layers of protection around Thousand Demon City and check everyone who goes in and out." Luoho Divine King laughed and explained, "I've embarrassed myself in front of young Lord. The old master is not here and the Ophiuchus have no one to rely on. Struggling in this dangerous world, of course they have to be careful and take precautions." Ji Tianxing stopped discussing this matter and changed the topic. He asked again, "Ophiuchus, do you know about the 9 mystical cave heaven on the northern coast?" The Rahu God King replied, "The 9 mystical paradise is only 3 regions away from our alliance. It can be considered within our alliance's sphere of influence. This old servant naturally knows about it. The golden rock race of the 9 mystical cave heaven lived in seclusion from the world. Their disciples rarely came out to the world and they seemed to be aloof from worldly affairs. It's also because of this that the 9 mystical cave heaven didn't stop our alliance from secretly controlling the forces and industries in the northwest region. Since the 10,000 Demon League and the 9 mystical cave heaven didn't have any grudges, Ji Tianxing was relieved. He continued to ask, "Do you know the leader of the Golden Rock tribe? Patriarch Golden Rock?" God King Luoho shook his head and said regretfully, It's been more than 1,000 years. I don't know if the patriarch has changed. I haven't contacted them. However, Grand Elder Hu Xingyue seems to have some relationship with the Golden Rock race's great divine master. After pausing for a moment, God King Luoho asked, "Young master, if there's anything you need, just say the word. This old servant will find a way to do it." "It's not a big deal." Ji Tianqing waved his hand and said with a smile, "Before I met you, I planned to find the Golden Rock ancestor and ask about master's whereabouts. Since I've met you and learned the truth, there's no need to pay a visit. However, there's a young disciple of the Golden Rock race beside me. We hit it off, so I brought him along. I was thinking of sending someone to send him back to the 9 mystical cave heaven after the matter in the devouring star cave heaven is over." Poor Peng Fei. He only wanted to follow Ji Tianqing to travel the world and increase his knowledge. At the same time, he wanted to learn cultivation from Ji Tianqing. He didn't expect Ji Tianqing to send him back to the 9 mystical cave heaven in the end. God King Luoho smiled and answered straightforwardly, "This is a small matter. This old servant will instruct the Grand Elder to send that kid back to the 9 mystical cave heaven. Young master, don't worry." The two chatted for a few hours before the divine worship arrived at a city in the Dark Water region. Next, God King Luoho and Ji Tianqing concealed their auras and identities. They used the teleportation divine array and left quietly. Just like before, when God King Luoho brought Ji Tianqing back to the demon city, the two of them used the teleportation divine array continuously. Their speed was extremely fast. Back then, Ji Tianqing left the star-devouring star cave heaven in the clear sky domain and traveled north for more than a month. However, he still couldn't reach the Dark Water region. Now, with God King Luoho leading the way, the two of them used the teleportation divine array and reached Sky Star City in the clear sky domain in just 2 days. This Sky Star City was the closest main city to the star-devouring star cave heaven. Swoosh. The two of them left Sky Star City quietly and arrived in the wilderness. Then they took out the divine warship and flew high into the sky toward the star-devouring star cave heaven. An hour later, the divine warship was not far from the star-devouring star cave heaven. God King Luoho hurriedly activated the divine warship's secret technique and made the divine warship invisible. Its aura was completely concealed. As the divine warship got closer to the star-devouring star cave heaven, the two of them realized that there were experts in divine warships flying past in the sky all around them. Wave after wave of experts and divine warships were all heading in the direction of the star-devouring star cave heaven. Seeing this scene, God King Luoho said to Ji Tianqing, "Young master, those should be the experts of the various major factions. They are also going to attack the star-devouring star cave heaven. According to the information that the third elder found, there should be 4 top factions that arrived at the star-devouring star cave heaven yesterday and today. There are also a dozen or so first-rate factions that can be ignored. Not to mention fighting with the various factions, I'm afraid that they don't even have the ability to attack the star-devouring star cave heaven." Ji Tianqing raised his eyebrows and said with a playful smile, "I already expected this result. The star-devouring star cave heaven is a big piece of fat meat. Everyone wants a bite. For those top factions to be able to wait until now before making their move, it can be seen that they are scheming and plotting something big." As the two of them chatted and laughed, they arrived at the top of a lone mountain. On the other side of the lone mountain was a bottomless abyss shrouded in layers of clouds. Ji Tianqing was no stranger to this place. The divine warship stopped high in the sky and God King Luoho put it away. Swoosh. He and Ji Tianqing appeared high in the sky at the same time. They remained invisible and concealed their auras as they looked down at the abyss below. They saw that there were already 4 groups of experts waiting in the bottomless abyss shrouded in clouds. The 4 groups of experts were piloting divine warships. They were all different in terms of attire and race. The divine warships were also engraved with different patterns and emblems. Clearly, they were 4 different factions. Many experts and elite forces were hidden in their divine warships. The 4 factions spread out and occupied the 4 corners of the abyss. They were all staring at the entrance to the star-devouring star cave heaven in the abyss. Above each divine warship stood several divine king realm experts. They were clearly the leaders and upper echelons of their respective factions. The 4 factions clearly knew each other. They were even conversing and probing each other. Chapter 3689. These 4 forces were the top forces of the northwest regions. Just by looking at the cultivators standing in the air above the divine warships, One could see how powerful they were. Although there were only a few of them, they were all high god kings with deep foundations. The four forces wanted to attack and occupy the star-devouring grotto heaven, but they were in a standoff in the abyss, wary of each other. Since they were not making a move, Ji Tianqing and God King Luoho were not in a hurry to make a move. The two stood above the abyss, concealed. God King Luoho pointed at the four forces and introduced them to Ji Tianqing. The group in the east is from the Shihe sect and the group in the north is from the Profound Yang Palace. The group in the west is from the Swift Wind Hall, and the group in the south is from the Three Kings Temple. The one in the blue robe is the vice sect master of the Shihe sect. The one with the heavy sword on his back is the great guardian of the Profound Yang Palace. The one in the west is wearing a fur coat and a bamboo hat. He is the second palace master of the Swift Wind Hall. Among the group from the Three Kings Temple, their great God King does not have a training ground, but the second and third leaders are here. God King Luoho knew all the leaders of the four forces. While introducing them to Ji Tianqing, he did not forget to explain which experts were proficient in which divine ability or secret art, and reminded Ji Tianqing to pay attention. In his opinion, Ji Tianqing would definitely fight with those experts if he wanted to enter the star-devouring grotto heaven. But to God King Luoho's surprise, Ji Tianqing was very calm and did not seem to be in a hurry. He waited patiently for half an hour and did not have any intention of making a move. On the other hand, the four forces in the abyss had been in a standoff for a long time, and their patience was running out. Everyone, we have the same goal. Why waste time here? Yes. Instead of wasting time here, why don't we work together to take down the star-devouring grotto heaven? I suggest that we work together and take down the star-devouring grotto heaven. If you think too simply, who will be the leader if the four forces work together? The star-devouring paradise is now without a leader. It's as easy as flipping one's hand to break through it. In my opinion, the biggest problem now is who has the qualifications to enter the star-devouring paradise, right? The leaders of the four powers were still arguing. None of them believed in each other and all of them wanted to devour the star heavenly passage for themselves. None of them were willing to yield or back down. Upon seeing this, God King Rahu secretly sent a voice transmission. These four factions are evenly matched and are all a motley crew. None of them are willing to submit to the other. In this old servant's opinion, I'm afraid that even if they continue to stalemate for an entire day, they may not be able to come up with a feasible plan. Ji Tianqing smiled and said disapprovingly, they have time to waste but we don't. At most we'll wait for another 2 hours. If they still haven't reached an agreement to attack the star-devouring paradise, then we'll have no choice but to take action. God King Rahu knew that Ji Tianqing was waiting for the four factions to join forces before taking advantage of the chaos to enter the star-devouring grotto heaven. In that case, the chances of success would be higher and it would be harder to be discovered. However, it was useless to keep waiting like this. At the critical moment, they still had to use some tricks. Just as the four factions were in a stalemate, in the sky not far away, a ferocious-looking blood-colored divine warship sailed over. Swoosh! That divine warship was extremely fast. In just a few breaths of time, it arrived above the abyss and stopped. The divine warship was engraved with an insignia. The blood-colored flag fluttered in the wind, emitting a mighty and domineering aura. Seeing that the fifth faction had arrived, the four factions stopped arguing. Their gazes landed on that divine warship. When everyone saw the flag and insignia of that divine warship clearly, their expressions changed immediately. They began to whisper to each other in discussion. It's actually the Xianxia clan's divine warship? Damn it! There are already 3 factions fighting with us. I didn't expect the Xianxia clan to interfere too. Didn't the rumors say that the Xianxia clan leader and right protector were both injured by Long Tian? Why would the Xianxia clan interfere in this matter? Could it be that the Xianxia clan leader Zhou Xian has already recovered from his injuries? Although the 4 of us are quite powerful compared to the Xianxia clan, our foundation is still too weak. If the Xianxia clan wants to monopolize the star-devouring grotto heaven, I'm afraid we won't be their match. Everyone, don't panic first. Let's see who the Xianxia clan sent first before making a decision. As long as Zhou Xian doesn't come personally, we don't have to be afraid of them. Just as everyone was discussing, the Xianxia clan's divine warship lit up with a dazzling light, and the cabin door opened. Swoosh! With a flash of divine light, 4 tall and burly figures flew out of the divine worship and stood above the divine worship. Everyone's gazes landed on the 4 Xianxia clan elites. When everyone saw the person in the lead clearly, their expressions changed drastically and they cried out in surprise. That was because the Xianxia clan leader Zhou Xian had actually come personally. Behind him was the right protector who was 1 step behind. The 2 elders of the Xianxia clan were 3 steps away from them. There was no need to say anything more about the strength of Zhou Xian and the right protector. Just those 2 upper divine king realm elders were enough to make the 4 forces rather fearful. Zhou Xian looked around and his cold gaze swept across the 4 forces elites. He muttered to himself, "Fortunately I came in time. These bastards have not attacked yet." When the godly king experts of the 4 forces heard Zhou Xian's words, they immediately frowned and their expressions changed. Someone was angry, so he mustered up his courage and mocked. "I originally thought that only small sects like us would covet the star-devouring grotto heaven. I didn't expect that a large ancient clan like the Xianxia clan would covet it too." With someone taking the lead, more people immediately chimed in. "I heard that the Taotai clan and the Xianxia clan have formed an alliance and taken care of each other for many years. I didn't expect the Xianxia clan to be the most eager to kick the Taotai clan when they are in trouble. How ironic. Clan leader Zhou Xian, you actually came personally to attack the star-devouring grotto heaven. Have you thought about the impact it will have on the Xianxia clan after the news spreads?" Previously the 4 forces were still arguing endlessly and they were in a deadlock. Now that the stronger Xianxia clan had come, the 4 forces had a tacit understanding to attack the Xianxia clan together. Zhou Xian was not surprised by the crowd's reaction at all. After all, he had expected and prepared for it. He looked around at the crowd and sneered disdainfully, "You despicable people dare to slander me and the Xianxia clan? I came here today because I received news that some rascals are plotting to attack the star-devouring grotto heaven. As the ally and brother of the Taotai clan, how can my Xianxia clan sit by and do nothing? I would like to see who is so daring to attack the star-devouring grotto heaven. If you are not afraid of death, then come." Zhou Xian's words were righteous, impassioned, and contained an unquestionable dominance. When the elites of the 4 forces heard it, they were all stunned for a moment and they all frowned. Many godly kings even whispered to each other. Chapter 3690. How could this be? Is the Xianxia clan not here to attack the star-devouring grotto heaven? From Zhou Xian's words, the Xianxia clan is not only not attacking the star-devouring grotto heaven, but also protecting the Taotai clan? That's not right, right? Why would the Xianxia clan be so kind? Zhou Xian's character has changed? Impossible. I don't believe it. The god kings of the 4 forces were unwilling to believe Zhou Xian's words. Soon the second leader of the 3 kings' temple sneered, "Everyone, don't be fooled by Zhou Xian. Everyone knows what kind of character he is. He's just using the pretense of protecting the star-devouring grotto heaven to force us to retreat." The second leader's words woke everyone up, and the god kings of the other forces immediately reacted. Hence, the vice-sect master of the Shihe sect also shouted, "The second leader is right. Zhou Xian is obviously here to snatch the star-devouring grotto heaven, but he wants to use a pretense. He's doing dirty things but he's saying it in a dignified manner. Isn't this their style?" As the 2 leaders exposed Zhou Xian's true colors, the 4 forces became united against a common enemy. Vaguely they were working together to treat the Xianxia clan as a great enemy. Zhou Xian was instantly enraged and he shouted with a gloomy face, "You bastards, don't slander me. If I wanted to kick you when you're down, I would have occupied the star-devouring grotto heaven long ago. Why wait until today? It's because you rascals want to snatch the star-devouring grotto heaven that I have no choice but to resist. I'm righteous and the Xianxia and Taotai clans help each other. This is something everyone knows. How can you distort the truth?" Zhou Xian's righteous words almost made the people of the Xianxia clan believe him. However, the great guardian of the profound Yang Palace stroked his beard and sneered, "Patriarch Zhou Xian, everyone knows the reason why you waited until today to appear. Why do you have to hide it? In my opinion, you and the right guardian were heavily injured by Long Tian. I'm afraid you only came out of seclusion recently, right?" Zhou Xian was furious and his eyes were filled with rage. He could not help but shout, Shameless thief, how dare you slander me? Looks like if I don't teach you a lesson you'll forget my name. As soon as he finished speaking, Xiang suddenly exploded with all of his power, and a bloody mist gushed out from his body, covering the entire abyss. He waved his sleeves and fiercely punched out with his fists, sending out 2 fist lights as big as a mountain towards the profound Yang Palace's great guardian. In an instant, the abyss within a radius of several hundred miles was sealed. Space froze and divine power stagnated. The invisible divine might suppressed the experts of the 4 forces, causing everyone to feel uneasy and their expressions to turn solemn. The expression of the profound Yang Palace's first guardian, who was enveloped by the 2 fist lights, changed drastically. He quickly gripped his heavy sword tightly and counterattacked with all his might. Indestructible mystical slash. The profound Yang Palace's great protector was an 8th degree realm peak god king expert. Under his rage, he attacked with his full strength, and he slashed out a 3 kilometers long blade of light that carried over 100 types of divine Dao laws, causing it to be extremely awe-inspiring. The dark sky was sliced open by the 1,000-meter-long sword light, revealing layers of cracks in the void. Boom! In the next moment, the 3 kilometers long sword light collided with the 2 fist lights, causing a deafening shattering sound. The 3 kilometers long sword light and the fist light collapsed at the same time, turning into millions of divine light fragments. However, the other fist radiance still hit him squarely. Bam! With a muffled sound, the profound Yang Palace's great protector's divine power shield was shattered, and his armor was dented. He spat out a mouthful of blood as he was sent flying over a dozen miles away. Xiang had defeated the profound Yang Palace's great protector with a single move, displaying his divine might, causing the god kings of the 4 forces to be filled with fear and worry. However, Xiang still wanted to establish his might and intimidate the 4 forces. He waved his palms again, sending out 2 gigantic bloody palms that blotted out the sun. They were aimed at the 2nd Palace Master of Swift Wind Palace and the Vice Sect Master of Xihe Sect. The expressions of the God Kings of Swift Wind Palace changed instantly, and they immediately joined forces to cast a technique to block the bloody palms. The 4 God Kings of Xihe Sect did the same. They used all their divine powers and secret techniques to block Xiang's attack. With a series of muffled booms, the sky above the abyss became chaotic. The bloody palms and the divine powers cast by the God Kings collapsed one after another. Millions of divine light fragments burst out, creating a violent shockwave that caused the divine warships of the various forces to sway unsteadily. Fortunately, the God Kings of Xihe Sect and Swift Wind Palace managed to block Xiang's attack. However, their faces were covered in dust and dirt and they were somewhat embarrassed. Their morale had also weakened a little. For a moment, Xiang's divine might was unparalleled and he overshadowed the 4 forces. He was extremely domineering. The 4 forces' morale was dampened and they no longer dared to mock Xiang. Xiang was pleased with himself. He put his hands behind his back and said with a cold smile, "This is just a little lesson for you to know what's good for you. I will give you the time it takes for a stick of incense to burn to leave this place immediately. If anyone still refuses to give up, don't blame me for being merciless." As soon as he said that, the leaders of the 4 forces were filled with anger, and their eyes were about to pop out of their sockets. They looked at each other and hurriedly communicated through voice transmission to discuss countermeasures. Xiang's injuries have indeed recovered. In terms of one-on-one combat, none of us are his match. This old man is really despicable. He actually wants to monopolize the star-devouring cave under the guise of protecting it. Although we all know Xiang's true colors, he insists that he is protecting the Taotai tribe. We can't do anything to him. Everyone, I think we should put aside our differences. It's time to join forces against the enemy. That's right. If we don't join forces, don't even think about getting a single strand of hair. Everything will be taken away by Xiang. I agree. I also agree to the alliance. In a short while, the leaders of the 4 forces made up their minds to temporarily form an alliance to fight against the Xianxia tribe. The deputy faction leader of Xihe Sect glared at Xiang and said in a low voice, "Xiang, I admit that I am not your match. Xihe Sect is also no match for the Xianxia tribe. However, the 4 of us have already formed an alliance to fight against the Xianxia tribe. No matter how strong you are, 2 fists are no match for 4 legs." The second palace master of Gale Palace also nodded in agreement and said with a cold smile, "In terms of numbers, the four of us definitely outnumber you. You want to drive us away and monopolize the star-devouring cave? Dream on." The great guardian of Profound Yang Palace and the second leader of Three Kings Temple also expressed their stance. Suddenly, the situation in the battlefield was reversed. The four forces joined forces to fight against Xianxia. They seemed to be very confident and actually suppressed Xianxia's arrogant aura. Xianxia frowned and sneered with a murderous look. You bunch of mobs, you are really bold. How dare you join forces to fight against me? Have you ever thought about the consequences of offending me? When this is over, I will settle the score with you one by one. Which one of you can bear my anger? Chapter 3691. Xianxia and godly King Luoho had been hiding in the clouds above the abyss. The two just stood there casually, but they had concealed their figures and auras so no one had discovered them. They had seen the changes in the abyss with their own eyes and they smiled playfully. Xianxia said playfully, "Xianxia thinks he can suppress the four forces and intimidate everyone. That's why he's so arrogant and overbearing. But he's too impatient. Doing so will only backfire." Godly King Luoho nodded in agreement and said playfully, "His aggressiveness will only make the four forces more united and more determined to resist." As expected, the leaders of the four forces were even more worried when they heard Xianxia's threat. Their will to resist became even more resolute, and the temporary alliance actually became even tighter. "Xianxia, since you're so heartless, don't blame us for being unjust. Don't think that today's matter will end well. Since we've already offended the Xianxia tribe, how can we retreat? Patriarch Xianxia, since you want to take revenge, then we must not back down. Otherwise, won't we lose both our people and our wealth?" Seeing the four leaders become more determined, Xianxia frowned and scolded himself for being foolish. Normally, he looked down on these so-called top forces and did not take them seriously at all. After all, there was no one in the four forces who could defeat him. He thought that with his powerful martial strength and the deterrence of the Xianxia tribe, he could intimidate the four forces and make them retreat. He did not expect that it would turn out like this. For a moment, Xianxia was in a difficult position. If he continued to maintain a tough attitude, he would definitely start a war with the four forces. Although he looked down on the four forces, he knew that if they worked together, they would definitely be able to kill the people he had brought with him. At that time, only he and the right protector would be able to escape. Even if they could severely injure the four forces, the Xianxia tribe would be greatly weakened and follow in the footsteps of the Taotai tribe. This was not worth it. But if he softened his attitude, he would lose face and be mocked by the four forces. Xianxia was in a dilemma and did not know what to do. At this moment, the right protector took a step forward and said with a cold expression and a dignified tone, "I thought that you were all heroes and at least had some shrewdness and insight. I didn't expect it to be so stupid and laughable." The experts of the four forces were furious and looked at the right protector with sword-like eyes. The right protector's expression did not change as he continued, "The entrance to the star-devouring paradise is just below. Everyone can't even enter the star-devouring paradise, yet here they are ready to fight to the death." It was as if a few thieves wanted to steal something, but before they even started they killed each other because of internal strife. In the end, all of the thieves were either killed or seriously injured, but they didn't even make a move. Don't you think it's stupid and laughable? As soon as he said that, the leaders of the four forces quieted down. Everyone's anger was reduced by more than half. They were all silent, pondering over the right protector's words. Seeing this, an idea flashed through Xianxia's mind and he suddenly had an idea. "Everyone, you should know that every blessed paradise is like a world. There are strong spatial barriers and various powerful divine arrays to protect it. Even if the four of you join forces, you may not be able to break through the defense of the star-devouring paradise. You can't enter at all. Why don't you listen to me and hide first? I will negotiate with the people of the star-devouring paradise." As soon as he said that, the Profound Yang Palace's great protector and the second palace master of Gale Temple thought for a moment and nodded in agreement. However, the second palace master of Three Kings Temple and the deputy sect master of Shi sect were resolute in their opposition. "Xianxia, don't you dare play tricks. Don't think that we don't know what you're thinking. You can trick the Taotai clan into opening the entrance. When you enter the star-devouring paradise, you'll leave us outside. Hearing these words, the profound Yang Palace's great protector and the second palace master of Gale Temple, who had originally agreed, hesitated and wavered. Although the deputy sect master of Shihe sect had guessed correctly and exposed Xueshang's intentions, Xueshang would never admit to it. He sneered disdainfully and said, "Since you're gauging the heart of a gentleman with your own mean measure, then do as you please. You can try. The four of you can join forces to attack the star-devouring paradise. I'll see if you can break it. Moreover, I'll destroy you at the critical moment to gain the Tao Tai clan's trust." Hearing his words, the four leaders were furious, but there was nothing they could do. Hence, the situation fell into a deadlock again. Seeing that everyone was silent, Xueshang said proudly, "You've come from afar. If you want to continue wasting time, I can accompany you. Anyway, the Nebula Paradise is very close to here, and I'm here to protect the star-devouring paradise. I'm happy to play with you." In this way, the four forces fell into a passive position again and felt the pressure. In the end, the leaders of the four forces discussed telepathically for a while before they made up their minds and came up with a solution. Patriarch Xueshang, a straightforward person, does not resort to insinuations. Since we're all here for the same goal, there's no need to fight among ourselves. I suggest that our alliance cooperate with you. Everyone can work together for the common good. Wouldn't that be easier and smoother? Patriarch Xueshang, I think the idea you proposed just now is feasible. As long as you agree to cooperate, we'll follow your plan. How about it? Seeing the four forces take the initiative to show weakness, Xueshang also fell into hesitation and deliberated repeatedly. After being silent for a long time, he also made up his mind and nodded. "All right, since you're sincere and I'm not a pedantic person, then let's join forces. However, we'll split the benefits of the star-devouring paradise equally." Although he agreed to cooperate, the way he divided the spoils made the four forces very dissatisfied. The leaders of the four forces began to wrangle and bargain with Xueshang again. Xueshang was forced to take a step back and announced his decision. "Then how about this? I want the star-devouring paradise and 30% of the resources. The remaining 70% of the resources and treasures will be divided among you. This is my bottom line. If you don't agree, then there's no need to talk." The leaders of the four forces secretly discussed telepathically for a while before reluctantly accepting this result. Hence, the two sides reached an agreement and began to act. The experts of the four forces returned to the divine ships and used all kinds of divine abilities and secret techniques to hide. Xueshang also hid the divine ships and only brought the right guardian to the entrance of the star-devouring paradise. The entrance was naturally closed and protected by a powerful divine array. Xueshang used a technique to knock on the divine array and quickly summoned the Tao Tai clan guards guarding the entrance. A guard captain and 5 guards passed through the entrance and appeared in the abyss. When they saw Xueshang and the right guardian, they hurriedly bowed and greeted them respectfully. Xueshang also pretended to be friendly and explained his intentions to the other party, expressing his condolences and comfort and wanting to help the Tao Tai clan through this difficult time. Unexpectedly, the guard captain replied in a neither servile nor overbearing manner, "Patriarch Xueshang, my clan appreciates your kindness. However, the elders of the clan have decided to seal the star-devouring paradise for 5,000 years to recuperate. During this time, my clan will not go out and will not see any guests. Patriarch Xueshang, please go back." Hearing this, Xueshang was very angry, but he had already expected this. He patiently persuaded the guard captain and continued to persuade him to open the entrance. Unexpectedly, the guard captain was a little overwhelmed after a long time and actually began to speak bluntly. "Patriarch Xueshang, please forgive this junior for being rude. Before our patriarch Tao died, he repeatedly warned us not to accept your help and not to let you enter the star-devouring paradise." Chapter 3692. Xueshang was speechless. Both sides fell into silence. The atmosphere was very awkward. Standing high in the sky, Ji Tianxing and God King Luoho, who were secretly watching the show, could not help but smile. Xueshang, this old fox, probably did not expect that before Tao Yongxing died, he had already warned the elders of the Tao Tai clan. Tao Yongxing had long seen that he was two-faced and had other thoughts and schemes, so he was on guard against him. Looking at the current situation, it seems that Xueshang can only fight head-on. God King Luoho nodded slightly in agreement and said, "Since we have already shed all pretenses, there is no need for him to pretend." As expected, just as God King Luoho finished speaking, the scene at the entrance of the star-devouring grotto heaven changed. After the guard captain explained the situation, he was about to return to the grotto heaven with the 5 guards. At this time Xueshang knew that he could not deceive the other party, so he decided to be ruthless. Swoosh, swoosh swoosh. He waved his right hand and suddenly shot out 5 blood-red blades toward the 5 guards. With a few muffled sounds, the blood-red blades pierced through the foreheads of the 5 guards. Their godheads collapsed on the spot and they died immediately. Xueshang's left hand was like an eagle's claw, grabbing at the guard captain's throat. His left palm grew in the wind and turned into a giant blood-red palm, instantly capturing the guard captain, who was an upper divine lord. Xueshang, you really... The guard captain was shocked and angry at being captured and he was about to curse. However, Xueshang was choking him so he could not say a word. Since you are guarding the entrance, you must know how to open it. Xueshang stared at the guard captain and sneered, "Tell me the way to open it and I will spare your life." You want? The guard captain's divine power was sealed so he could not resist. His voice was low and he shouted word by word. As he spoke, dark red blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. He was obviously injured. Xueshang was not angry and continued to sneer, "It's fine if you don't say it. I will kill you and use a soul-searching technique to search your divine soul and memories. Then I will know." The guard captain was still struggling. His face was ferocious as he roared, "Even if you kill me, it's useless. I don't know how to open it at all. Someone is waiting for us inside. We've already taken precautions." Sure enough, the already sealed entrance to the heavenly abode was flickering with a dazzling divine light, and its power was constantly increasing. It was clear that the people inside the grotto heaven knew that something was wrong outside. They were strengthening the defenses at the entrance and activating more formations. Xueshang was so angry that he gritted his teeth and stomped his feet. Then he crushed the guard captain to death. With a crack, the guard captain's neck was broken, and the godhead in his head was shattered by Xueshang's divine power. Silence was restored at the entrance. Xueshang was unwilling to give up. He used the soul-searching divine spell to search for the godhead of the guard captain. A moment later he finished casting the spell and frowned in annoyance. In the end, just as the guard captain had said, he did not have a way to open it. The plan to trick the Taotai clan into opening the entrance had failed. Xueshang could only accept his fate. He shouted toward the abyss, "Everyone come out. We can only attack by force." Soon the 4 hidden divine battleships reappeared in the sky above the abyss. The leaders of the various forces all revealed disappointed expressions. Some of them even muttered and criticized. I thought clan leader Xueshang was really united with the Taotai clan. I didn't expect the Taotai clan to be on guard all this time. Tao Yongxing is not a simple person either. I'm afraid he has already seen through Xueshang's wild ambition. In the end, all our efforts were in vain. We still have to force our way in." Complaining was complaining, but they still had to do business. A few leaders flew into the sky and gathered with Xueshang. After discussing for a while, they decided on the plan. Next, the 5 forces each sent out 20 elites or gods to listen to their orders and assignments. With Xueshang as the leader and a dozen divine kings as support, they set up a formation in the abyss and joined forces to cast spells to attack the entrance to the grotto heaven. The 100 elites or gods also spread out and formed a battle formation to assist the experts in attacking. Swoosh swoosh swoosh. Rumble. Hundreds of divine powers and secret skills, divine light blades and light pillars that blotted out the sun, bombarded the grotto heaven's entrance one after another, creating a series of dull sounds. The grotto heaven's entrance was not big. It was only 100 feet in radius. However, the continuous attacks of the experts covered an area of 100 feet in radius. The area was bombarded with divine light explosions and energy overflowed. The nearby cliffs and mountain walls were smashed into pieces and turned into ruins. Unfortunately, the star-devouring grotto heaven was protected by a king-grade divine array and the defense of the entrance was even stronger. Xueshang and the experts of the 4 forces added up to more than 110 people. They could only bombard the grotto heaven's entrance until it shook violently, but they could not break it. The violent and disorderly bombardment lasted for a quarter of an hour. In the entire abyss, the deafening loud noises and violent shock waves never stopped. Fortunately, Xianxia and the others saw that it was not effective and immediately changed their strategy. In the process of bombarding the grotto heaven's entrance, he rarely attacked because he wanted to take the opportunity to observe the formation and think of a way to break it. Now he had some understanding of the divine array that sealed the grotto heaven's entrance. Therefore, the 100 Sir gods continued to attack the grotto heaven's entrance while he and a dozen king-grade gods began to try to break the divine array. The scene was still intense. Divine light flashed and loud noises shook the sky. The Taotai clan guards guarding the grotto heaven's entrance must be very nervous. Above the abyss, Ji Tianxing, who had been watching silently, finally sighed and said, Tao Yongxing's strength is limited after all, and he is not good at array doctrine. Even though he relied on the ancestors' blessing to leave behind a king-grade divine array, he was unable to repair or improve it. If Xianxia and the others attack recklessly, they can naturally resist for 3 to 5 days. However, if Xianxia and the others start to break the formation, they will see results in 2 to 3 days. Divine King Luoho nodded slightly and asked, Young master, do you mean, we continue to wait? Ji Tianxing waved his hand and said, There is not much hope for this group of people to break the formation. I do not have the patience to continue waiting. They are lucky to have met me. I will help them along the way. With that said, he flew towards the grotto heaven's entrance with Divine King Luoho and instructed, Cover me. Divine King Luoho wanted to ask him why he wanted to help Xianxia and the others. However, it was clearly not the time to talk and he could only drop the subject. Swish. Silently, the two arrived near the grotto heaven's entrance and easily passed through the battle formation formed by the 100 Sir gods without being discovered. Xianxia and the other king-grade gods were not as strong as Ji Tianxing and Divine King Luoho. At this moment they were focused on breaking the formation and did not notice anything amiss. Under Divine King Luoho's puzzled gaze, Ji Tianxing silently took out the primordial chaos bell. Chapter 3693. The primordial chaos bell used to be Tao Yongxing's natal divine artifact, his strongest trump card. Now it was Ji Tianxing's. The grade and power of this artifact was no weaker than the Jiutian 10 Absolutes Pagoda. It was just lacking in some aspects. However, the Jiutian 10 Absolutes Pagoda was Ji Ku's treasure. He could not keep using it to refine it into his natal divine artifact. The appearance of the primordial chaos bell made up for Ji Tianxing's current predicament of not having a powerful divine artifact. He formed a divine seal with his left hand and held the primordial chaos bell in his right hand. He passed through the divine light released by Xianxia and the others and rushed toward the grotto heaven's entrance. Luoho followed closely behind him, helping him conceal his aura and tracks to prevent Xianxia and the others from discovering him. The next moment, Ji Tianxing held the primordial chaos bell and slammed it on the grotto heaven's entrance. Bam! The divine bell slammed on the divine array at the grotto heaven's entrance, releasing a beam of divine light and a muffled sound. However, 100 godly lords were attacking together, and a dozen godly kings were also cracking the divine array. Within a radius of 1,000 feet, there were hundreds and thousands of divine lights lit up at all times. No one noticed anything unusual. Then a miraculous scene appeared. The divine array at the grotto heaven's entrance recognized the primordial chaos bell and did not reject it at all. It immediately opened a gap. This scene was exactly what Ji Tianxing had expected, causing a smile to appear on his face. Back then Tao Yongxing did not return to the star-devouring grotto heaven to hunt me down. Before he died he could send a message to the elders of his clan to be wary of Xianxia. However, he could not change the divine array at the star-devouring grotto heaven. He did not expect that he would die and the primordial chaos bell would fall into my hands. This divine bell is the Taotai clan's divine artifact, so it is naturally connected to the divine array. At the same time, the divine bell is also Tao Yongxing's keepsake. The divine array will not intercept it. This thought flashed through Ji Tianxing's mind. His eyes were filled with anticipation. The gap on the divine array's light wall continued to expand. It had already opened to a height of 5 feet. If he did not stop it, the gap would soon become a door with a radius of 30 feet. This result was not what Ji Tianxing wanted to see. He hurriedly put away the primordial chaos bell and entered the star-devouring grotto heaven with God King Rahu. Throughout the entire process, the two of them were in an invisible state and concealed their auras so no one noticed them. Xiang and the dozen or so god kings suddenly saw a gap appear at the entrance of the grotto heaven. They were overjoyed and cried out in surprise. Great! We did it! Everyone look! We've broken through the entrance. What are you waiting for? Hurry up and charge in. As the cries rang out, Xiang, the right protector, and the god kings of the four clans all charged towards the gap. Even the 100 elite Sir gods rushed over at their fastest speed. Unfortunately, from the moment Ji Tianqing put away the primordial chaos spell, that 5-foot-tall gap began to heal rapidly. When the divine array sensed the primordial chaos spell, it would naturally open the entrance. Since he couldn't sense it anymore, it would naturally shut down. In addition, the guards guarding the entrance of the grotto heaven were all shocked when they realized that there was a gap in the divine array. They also thought that Xiang and the rest had breached the entrance and immediately cried out in surprise. They desperately controlled the divine array to close the gap. As such, the 5-foot-tall gap was healing at an extremely fast speed. Even so, it still delayed them for 2 breaths of time. To Xiang and the other god kings, this amount of time was enough. Swoosh. Swoosh swoosh swoosh. In the blink of an eye, Xiang, right protector, deputy sect master Shihe, Gale second hall master, and the rest passed through the shrinking gap and rushed into the star-devouring grotto heaven. At this time, the gap in the divine array had already healed and the entrance was sealed again. A few god kings and hundreds of elite Sir gods were blocked outside and unable to enter. Those who were lucky enough to enter the star-devouring grotto heaven were all god king experts. Including Xiang and the right protector, there were only 8 people. Coincidentally, the leaders of the 5 clans had all entered. But what made Gale Temple and 3 Kings Temple depressed was that only 1 god king had entered. As for the other 3 forces, they had 2 god kings who had entered. From this moment on, these 2 clans were in a passive position and were extremely weak. The most powerful clan was naturally the Xianxia tribe. This was because Xiang and the right protector had both entered the star-devouring grotto heaven and both of them were very powerful. Time was of the essence. The 8 god kings rushed into the star-devouring grotto heaven. Before they could say anything, they were warmly welcomed. What welcomed them was naturally the violent attacks of dozens of Taotai clan guards. They have barged in. Kill. Guard the entrance with your lives. Kill them. Kill. Following a series of angry roars and shouts, divine skill attacks blotted out the sun and saber light and sword rain drowned the 8 god kings. The 8 god kings were all experienced people. They did not panic when they encountered trouble. They calmly blocked the attacks and launched a counterattack. Soon the 2 clashed near the entrance. Blood splattered and loud bangs shook the sky. The desert at the entrance was affected. The area within a radius of a few thousand miles was quickly turned into a crater and ruins. The 2 clashed for 100 breaths of time before it was declared over. The result was expected. There was no miracle. More than 60 Taotai clan guards were all killed by the 8 god kings. Even though there were 2 god king realm guard commanders among the guards, they could only delay for a moment. They still could not escape the outcome of being killed. After the battle ended, Xiang was not in a hurry to leave. His gaze swept across the 6 god kings. The corners of his mouth curled into a cold smile. He said in a dignified tone, "Everyone, although only the 8 of us rushed in, it's enough to exterminate the Taotai clan. The current situation I believe you all understand without this seat saying much. If you want things to go smoothly, you all have to listen to this seat's orders. After all, the bigger fist is the reason. Furthermore, this seat is more familiar with the Taotai clan." Although the 6 god kings of the 4 forces were aggrieved and filled with righteous indignation, they absolutely did not dare to vent. Everyone was silent. It was considered as tacitly agreeing to Xiang's position as the leader. Originally, the 6 of them joining forces could also stand up to Xiang and the right protector as equals in fight. But their 4 forces formed a temporary alliance and were not a monolithic bloc. They would not trust each other too much. No one wanted to stand out and be plotted against by their teammates at the crucial moment, becoming a vengeful spirit. Just like this, Xiang's massacre team was established. He was full of pride as he continued, "Since everyone is wholeheartedly convinced and accepted this seat's arrangement, then let's start the operation. The first step, we have to rush to the Taotai clan's main camp and kill those Taotai people. Although 80% of the Taotai clan's powerhouses are dead or injured, they still have several thousand clansmen left. There is no lack of God King powerhouses and Divine Lord powerhouses among them. Everyone has to do their best. If anyone slacks off, be careful of losing your life. The second step, wait until we eradicate the Taotai people, then we can control the star-devouring grotto heaven. At that time this seat will think of a way to open the entrance and let our elites in. Everyone will plunder the wealth together. Chapter 3694. Xueshang's words made the few god kings fearful and uneasy. Everyone's emotions were complicated, but similar thoughts flashed through their minds. What a ruthless method. We just want to snatch the mineral resources, but Xueshang wants to exterminate the Taotai clan. He's too vicious. After today, the Taotai clan that has been passed down for tens of thousands of years will be completely erased. Xueshang's words have a hidden meaning. He can't wait to take control of the star-devouring grotto heaven. I wonder if he'll go back on his words when we split the loot? With that thought, the god kings of the four forces started to be on guard against Xueshang. It was already too late for them to deploy their forces and increase the number of reinforcements they had. The only thing they could do was to try their best to stay together in the upcoming operation. Otherwise they might be plotted against and eliminated by Xueshang. Let's start the operation. Let's go. Xueshang was in high spirits. He waved his sleeves and gave the order. Then the 6 god kings followed him and the right guardian and flew into the depths of the star-devouring grotto heaven. At the same time, the news of the dozens of guards guarding the entrance being killed also spread to the Taotai clan's camp. Thousands of houses and palaces of different heights were scattered in the area of 10,000 miles. They were all shrouded in a haze of fear. Although the 4,000 Taotai clan members had a certain level of strength, they were still in a state of panic and fear. They were running around in a panic. After all, the news said that 8 god kings had killed their way into the star-devouring grotto heaven. How could the Taotai clan not be terrified and desperate? The 2 Taotai clan elders guarding the star-devouring grotto heaven could still maintain their composure. The 2 of them split up. One of them led a large group of guards to calm the Taotai clan members and incite them to resist. Now that it was a matter of life and death for the Taotai clan, all the Taotai clan members had to unite to overcome their fear and work together to resist the invading enemies. The other elder led a large group of guards to activate the defensive formation and set up a defensive battle formation. Soon 2 Supreme King-level divine formations set up by Tao Yongxing were activated and covered an area of 10,000 miles. Seeing the 2 layers of bloody light and dense starlight shield, the thousands of Taotai clan members were slightly relieved. In order to further raise the fighting spirit of their clansmen and overcome their depression and despair, the 2 elders did another thing. That was to invite the Grand Elder, who was in seclusion all year round and had almost been forgotten by everyone, to appear in front of the clansmen. In terms of age and seniority, this Grand Elder was even higher than Tao Yongxing. He was the first divine king after the primordial era. He was an expert from the same generation as the Gold Source Dragon Emperor and the Sky Dragon Emperor. However, it was a pity that he was stuck at the late stage of the divine king realm for his entire life. He was unable to reach the peak. In terms of strength and foundation, he was a little stronger than Tao Yongxing. It was just that he had already stepped down from his post for close to 10,000 years and had long been forgotten by the Taotai clan. Only when he appeared at this moment did the thousands of clansmen remember this old Taishang elder, and their confidence instantly increased. In less than a quarter of an hour, the 2 elders and many deacons had arranged everything. The defensive formation was operating at full power. All the clansmen above the heavenly god realm joined the battle formation, waiting to protect their home and fight with their lives on the line. The white-haired Grand Elder propped up his aged body and held the blood-Qilin divine spear. He stood in the sky and waited silently. The 2 middle divine king elders were also fully armed, wearing their armor and holding their swords, waiting for the arrival of the strong enemy. On the other side, in a wasteland 30,000 miles away from the Taotai clan's main camp, Ji Tianxing and Luoho divine king were speeding. The Taotai clan's main camp was in the middle of the star-devouring grotto heaven. It was 100,000 miles away from the entrance. Ji Tianxing and Luoho divine king entered the star-devouring grotto heaven and traveled 100,000 miles. However, they changed their direction slightly to avoid the main camp. Ji Tianxing's target was obviously the depths of the star-devouring grotto heaven. Luoho divine king was a little confused and asked through voice transmission, Young master, I can understand why you avoided the Taotai clan's main camp and did not want to kill the thousands of people. However, along the way there are many mineral veins in the wasteland and barren mountains. Aren't we here to snatch resources? How can you let us go? Ji Tianqing smiled and explained, Snake Fu, you must have never been to the star-devouring grotto heaven before. That's why you said that. But indeed. Luoho Divine King nodded. Ji Tianqing continued, the star-devouring grotto heaven is not big, only a radius of 200,000 miles. The Taotai clan's main camp is right in the middle, about 100,000 miles away from the starry cliff in the north and the entrance in the south. However, before I came to the star-devouring grotto heaven, I already roughly observed it. 80% of the mineral veins here are in the depths of the grotto heaven, north of the main camp. From the south of the main camp to the entrance, although there are some mineral veins, they only account for about 20% of the total. Luoho Divine King thought for a while and asked, indeed. Could it be because of the terrain? The north of the main camp is closer to the vast starry sky, and it is nourished by the starlight, which is why there are so many mineral veins. However, the south of the main camp is less nourished by the starlight, so the resources are more barren. Ji Tianqing nodded slightly and said, correct. If we are reluctant to leave the mineral veins on the way, not only will we waste time, we might also be discovered by Xianxia and the others. Since that's the case, I might as well give up on the south of the main camp and only plunder the north of the main camp for 80% of the resources. Wouldn't that save time and effort? Luoho Divine King gradually understood his meaning and nodded repeatedly in praise. Young master is indeed wise. Xianxia and the divine kings of the four factions do not know of our existence. They even thought that the wealth of the star-devouring grotto heaven belongs to them, and no one can snatch it away. Therefore they will not be in a hurry. They will definitely finish off the Taotai clan first, take control of the star-devouring grotto heaven, and then slowly plunder the cultivation resources. However, the Taotai clan still has several thousand clansmen after all. They will definitely put up a last-ditch struggle. Xianxia and those divine kings will definitely have to pay a certain price and spend a large amount of time before they can finish them off. And this period of time is enough for us to plunder 80% of the resources north of the main camp. Ji Tianqing revealed a gratified smile and said, that's right, you said everything correctly. However, you still forgot one thing. The Taotai clan also does not know of our existence and will only resist Xianxia and the others with all their strength. Their attention will only be focused on the south of the main camp and will not pay attention to us at all. Ah, exactly so. Luoho Divine King immediately laughed heartily and clapped his hands in praise. Not seeing you for many years, young master, compared to back then, your actions are even steadier, and your thoughts are even more meticulous. Back then, Kenshin was infatuated with the sword Dao. What he walked was the path of using martial prowess to subdue people, the path of majesty and dominance. While the present Ji Tianqing was even more flexible and ever-changing. Sometimes bold and domineering, sometimes scheming and calculating, no longer as tense as back then. Although in terms of personal image he was not as elegant and otherworldly as Kenshin, high and mighty. However, in this cruel world, only Ji Tianqing's way of doing things would allow him to live longer and go further. Alright, we should get to work. At this time, Ji Tianqing scouted out 2 star ore veins hidden in the 2 mountain ranges ahead. He and Luoho Divine King split up and started casting their arts to excavate the ore veins. Chapter 3695. Star veins grew deep underground, fused with the earth and mountains. Ordinary people could only excavate bit by bit. It took a very long time to excavate the vein. Then they had to go through the process of cutting, sorting, washing, and refining before they could obtain pure divine stones. But this was only for ordinary people. Ji Tianqing and God King Rahu were not ordinary people. God King Rahu's actions were simple and crude, but very efficient. He directly used a supreme ability, releasing countless blades of divine light that cut the entire vein, mountain, and earth apart. Then he used a grappling technique to extract the entire vein from the ground and store it in a brand new interspatial ring. It only took 20 breaths of time to finish excavating the entire vein. However, this kind of excavation caused a huge commotion. Moreover, the earth and mountain had been excavated into an abyss-like pit. Even the vein was in its most primitive and crude state. On the other hand, Ji Tianqing's techniques and actions were clearly more complex and exquisite. He used the 5 elemental laws and the power of the earth to separate the vein from the mountain and earth. Then he cut the vein into several pieces and used divine power to wash away the impurities before digging it out of the ground. Although there were a few gaps in the ground, it did not have much of an impact and did not cause much of a disturbance. The entire vein was cut into several pieces, making it easier to store and store. Of course, he used about the same amount of time as God King Rahu. In addition to the two of them, there was also a fanatic who was passionate about mining. He was also busy underground. Without a doubt, this person was Yang. He was only a mid-level God King, far inferior to Ji Tianqing and God King Rahu in terms of strength. However, he had grasped the ability Ji Tianqing had imparted to him, and he was born with the ability to control the earth. He was very proficient in mining, washing, and refining. Usually he only used 20 breaths of time to excavate an entire vein. However, the veins he excavated had already undergone preliminary purification and did not have many impurities. The ores he excavated were cut into pieces of equal size, making it easier to store and pile them up. Most importantly, there were no abnormalities on the ground where he had excavated the vein. Only the ground was empty. Such a miraculous method not only made Ji Tianqing feel gratified, it also surprised God King Rahu. Just like that, the three of them began an intense and orderly excavation in the north of the Taotai tribe's camp. The three of them excavated at an extremely fast speed. It was just that searching for veins took some time. Even so, in a short hour the three of them excavated more than 20 veins. According to Ji Tianqing's estimation, this was only 10% of the resources north of the camp. If they wanted to dig out all the mineral resources north of the camp, it would take at least 4 to 5 hours. He couldn't help being slightly worried. After such a long time, Zhou Xian and those god kings had probably slaughtered the Taotai clan to the last person long ago, right? When he thought of this, he urged God King Luoho and Yan Ku to move faster. By Rahu, by Rahu. By Rahu, by Rahu. By Rahu, by Rahu. By Rahu, by God, by Rahu, by God. At the same time, Ji Tianqing also discovered some special resources and treasures along the way. For example, star-devouring flower, star spirit grass, 7-star treasure tree and other rare treasures. Naturally, when he discovered these treasures he took them all without hesitation. At the same time, outside the Taotai tribe's camp, there was an intense battle going on. The 2 layers of formation shield that enveloped a radius of 10,000 miles covered the ground like a sky curtain. Outside the shield, Zhou Xian and the 7 God King powerhouses occupied 8 positions respectively. They joined forces to attack the divine formation shield. The 8 God Kings were all very powerful. They had mastered all kinds of skills and secret skills. The surging divine light condensed into all kinds of lights and scenes. Like a flood, they poured down on the formation shield. Dark clouds covered the sky. Lightning flashed. Blood and fire filled the sky. There were swords, spears and images of ancient fierce beasts pouncing down. But Zhou Xian and the rest were not stupid. The skills they performed were all concentrated on a certain part of the shield. They did not disperse their power. Loud rumbling sounds rang out incessantly as the protective barrier of the spirit array trembled from the bombardment. Divine light flashed explosively as if it couldn't bear the heavy burden. After all, the 2 defensive divine formations were set up by Tao Yongsheng himself. Although it was a king-level divine formation, it was simple and shallow. It was not profound enough. It was still okay for a short period of time. Could block the fierce attacks of Zhou Xian and the rest. But after a long time the 2 layers of shield would collapse and be destroyed on the spot. Inside the shield, in the Taotai tribe's camp, thousands of Taotai tribe members looked up at the sky. Seeing the divine light barrier trembling violently, swaying and cracking, everyone's hearts tightened, and they were filled with worry and anxiety. Luckily, the Grand Elder, 2 elders and more than 100 guards joined forces to support the defensive divine formation. Almost 2,000 Taotai tribe members spread out and formed a huge battle formation to increase the power of the divine formation. In this way, the 2 defensive divine formations did not collapse even though they seemed to be in danger. Even the cracks and gaps that often appeared on the protective barrier of the divine formation were quickly repaired by the Supreme Elder and the others. Looking at the current situation, if there were no accidents, the Taotai tribe could still hold on for 1 or 2 days. Until the Taotai tribe's power was exhausted, the defensive divine formation would be broken. Of course, by then Zhou Xian and the 7 divine kings would be exhausted. Thinking of this, the Grand Elder and the experts of the Taotai tribe calmed down a little. However, Xianxia and the 7 divine kings were filled with anxiety and were somewhat irritated. They did not want to see such a situation. By then, even if they broke the defensive divine formation, their power would be exhausted. If they were to fight with thousands of Taotai tribe members, it was still unknown who would win. As powerful superiors, they would never allow such a situation to happen. They would not put themselves in danger and risk their lives to seek a chance of survival. They had to take the initiative and win easily and smoothly. Hence Xianxia and the rest attacked for 2 hours. When they did not see any results, they changed their strategy. Through the attack and observation just now, I can confirm that the 2 divine formations guarding the Taotai tribe's campsite are Supreme King-level divine formations. However, this is not the formation left behind by the ancestors of the Taotai tribe. It was set up by Tao Yongxing. Xianxia stopped attacking and said to the few divine kings, "I have known Tao Yongxing for more than 10,000 years. I know him quite well. These 2 divine formations are not too strong. As long as everyone helps and covers, I am confident that I can break them within 4 hours." The god kings all perked up when they heard him say that. They became eager. Since clan leader Xianxia is confident, we will naturally help and cover for you. That's right. The divine formation at the entrance of the star-devouring grotto heaven is so complicated and powerful. Even clan leader Xianxia can break it. The 2 divine formations set up by Tao Yongxing are nothing. Chapter 3696. Xianxia's suggestion was unanimously approved by the other supreme gods. The 2nd palace master of Gale Hall and the 2nd leader of 3 Kings Temple also flattered Xianxia. The 2 of them took the opportunity to express their opinions because they wanted to side with Xianxia. Although they might not really side with Xianxia, they still wanted to gain his favor. After all, they were both single commanders and did not have enough manpower. If Xianxia wanted to take advantage of them after this was over, they would be the ones being eaten. Everyone understood this, but no one said anything. Xianxia also pretended not to understand and continued, "Since no one has any objections, let's start." Then the 6 supreme gods continued to attack the defense divine array to cover for Xianxia. The right guardian of the Xianxia clan helped Xianxia and started to cast spells to break the divine array. Xianxia stared at the divine array barrier and formed a spell with both hands. He kept shooting out divine light into the array nodes of the barrier. It didn't take long for the defensive divine formation to react. Its power fluctuated and its operating speed was affected. Seeing that Xianxia's actions were effective, the 6 supreme gods were overjoyed and attacked even more fiercely. After Xianxia confirmed that the method was effective, he also calmed down and started to break the array even more aggressively. Naturally, the Grand Elder and the 2 elders within the protective barrier of the divine formation could see everything clearly. Seeing that Xianxia had started to break the array and was affecting the divine array, the Taotai clan elite started to panic. The Grand Elder and more than 100 guards continued to cast spells to support the divine array and repair the cracks and gaps. The 2 elders and 2,000 clansmen joined forces to attack Xianxia, who was outside the array. They did not expect to hurt Xianxia. They only hoped to disturb and stop Xianxia from breaking the divine array. However, what happened next left everyone dumbfounded. Xianxia's body flashed with golden light as he took out a golden divine artifact. Swoosh. It was a Xianxia skeleton that was hundreds of feet tall and as large as a mountain. It looked like a lion with 4 hooves, a scorpion tail and wings. It was dark gold and looked very majestic. Those who knew the inside story immediately recognized this divine artifact. It was the Xianxia clan patriarch's indestructible golden body. Swoosh. The indestructible golden body, which was hundreds of meters tall, descended from the sky and quickly shrunk to a height of 10 meters, hovering above Xianxia's head. The indestructible golden body enveloped his body and released a sacred golden light to protect him. The attacks of the 2 elders of the Taotai clan and the 2,000 clansmen were blocked by the indestructible golden body before they could get close to Xianxia. Even if some of the more powerful spells hit the indestructible golden body's light shield, they would instantly collapse, unable to damage the golden light shield at all. Under the protection of the indestructible golden body, Xianxia could be said to be incomparably safe and in an invincible position. He completely ignored everyone's attacks and focused on casting spells to break the formation. Meanwhile, Ji Tianxing, God King Rahu and Yang had already scoured an area of 40,000 kilometers north of the Taotai camp. In this area, the three of them successively excavated more than 80 mineral veins. Ji Tianxing also obtained more than 20 kinds of rare treasures. The last time he came to the star-devouring paradise, he had only taken a cursory look. He did not even have the chance to walk through the entire star-devouring paradise, so naturally he did not have the chance to examine it carefully. Only now did he realize that the star-devouring paradise's wealth was far beyond his imagination. The abundance of resources here was beyond his expectations and made him particularly surprised. The three of them excavated and searched for treasures. Ji Tianxing could not help but exclaim, "I have long known that the star-devouring paradise's location is special and is blessed by the heavens. The mineral veins are abnormally rich in resources. I did not expect that the rumors were not accurate. The mineral veins here are actually so abundant. If we take away all the resources here, we can probably feed the entire Myriad Demon League." The Myriad Demon League was one of the top 3 superforces in the Star Source continent. There were countless experts and disciples in the league with at least 20,000 members. One could imagine how abundant the mineral veins in the star-devouring paradise were. Unexpectedly, after hearing Ji Tianxing's words, God King Rahu hurriedly explained, "Young master, the mineral veins in the star-devouring paradise are indeed abundant and indeed unexpected. However, the resources here are too limited, and it is difficult to satisfy the daily needs of cultivation. Moreover, there are too many members in the Myriad Demon League and countless resources are consumed every year. Even if these mineral veins are converted to the equivalent of cultivation needs, it is estimated that they will only last for 500 to 600 years. When I first established the Myriad Demon League, I thought about these problems. Therefore, the various branches of the Myriad Demon League will use various methods to obtain income. Not only can it satisfy the daily needs of the League members, but it can also maintain the operations of the Myriad Demon League, and it can also save a large amount of cultivation resources." Although he spoke tactfully, he revealed a piece of information through these words. The Myriad Demon League had its own system and could operate normally. It did not lack cultivation resources and even had a large surplus. Therefore, no matter what, he would not take Ji Tianxing's mineral veins to subsidize the Myriad Demon League. Ji Tianxing understood his meaning and said with a smile, "I can guess this. However, if you lack any refining materials or ores in the future, you can find me." God King Rahu hurriedly bowed and said with a smile, "Then I will thank young master on behalf of the League members. If young master needs anything, please do not hesitate to ask. The reason why the Myriad Demon League has developed so far is that it has more people and more money." "That is good." Ji Tianxing was very satisfied and nodded with a smile. Underground not far away, Yang was excavating and refining the mineral veins. He naturally heard the conversation between Ji Tianxing and God King Rahu clearly. He was extremely shocked, excited and confused. "Oh my God. In the past, we only knew that young master was Kenshin and had supreme prestige in the God realm. I did not expect young master to be so powerful in the Dragon realm. A peak God King who controls a superforce like the Myriad Demon League is actually so respectful to him and calls him young master? This is too unreal, isn't it?" The more Yang thought about it, the more shocked he felt. He was even more curious and in awe of Ji Tianxing's mysterious background. However, at this moment he did not show any abnormalities. He suppressed his excitement and confusion and pretended that he did not hear anything. Following that, the three people continued to search for mineral veins, resources and rare treasures in the wasteland and mountains. In the past, before the Taotai clan met with a disaster, there would be guards patrolling the wasteland every day. But now, all of the Taotai clan's clansmen and guards were gathered in the camp, fighting against Zhou Xian and the rest with their lives. Ji Tianxing trio wandered the wasteland, excavating mineral veins wantonly and plundering rare treasures. They actually did not encounter a single person. Forget about encountering the Taotai clan, they did not even see a single ferocious beast or spirit beast. Completely unhindered. Just like this, as time passed, more and more mineral veins and treasures entered Ji Tianxing's pockets. Ji Tianxing was filled with joy and thought silently that after plundering these mineral veins and resources, the materials to forge the Burial of Heaven sword would not be lacking much. Chapter 3697. Another 4 hours passed. To the mining trio, time passed very quickly. It was short and happy. Another 120 mineral veins and 30 sets of rare treasures were in Ji Tianxing's pocket. Of course he was happy. However, to Xiang and the 7 divine kings, time passed extremely slowly. It was exhausting. Since Xiang started to crack the divine formation, for hours had passed. Everyone was exhausted. More than half of their divine power had been used up. Their spirits were a little weak. Inside the defensive divine formation, the 2 elders, over 100 guards and 2,000 Taotai clansmen were in the same situation. They were even more exhausted. Only the Grand Elder, who had always been in closed-door cultivation and had a very deep foundation, could still maintain 70% of his strength. Even so, it was difficult for him to do it alone. The 2 defensive divine formations that Tao Yongxing had set up were finally cracked by Xiang personally. The first layer of crimson light shield was already broken into pieces and its power was gone. At that moment, along with the cracking sound, a huge crack appeared on the second layer of golden light shield. The crack extended and expanded in all directions. Very soon it became a huge gap. Under the surprised and gratified gazes of the few divine kings and the desperate gazes of thousands of Taotai clansmen, the golden light shield gradually cracked and collapsed. Walala! Shards of divine light that covered the sky and the sun poured down from the sky like broken bricks, scattering on the wasteland. From then on, there was no longer any barrier between the 8 divine kings and the Taotai clansmen. In the camp of the Taotai clan, over 2,000 clansmen who were not qualified to participate in the battle were crying and screaming in despair. At the edge of the camp, on the wasteland that was full of devastation, the 2,000 Taotai clansmen who participated in the battle had red eyes. They were furious and desperate. Although these people knew that the end of the Taotai clan had arrived. Very soon they would be killed and turned into ashes. However, the Taotai clan was an ancient ferocious beast. Even if they were sealed as one of the 7 noble clans of the demon clan after the ancient times, it was still hard to change the bloodthirst and ruthlessness in their bones. Even if they were about to be destroyed, no one would be cowardly and surrender. At that moment, the 2,000 Taotai clansmen who were in a hopeless situation were triggered with boundless fighting spirit and killing intent. Their wills were as strong as an impregnable fortress, and they held the determination to die. They shouted their slogans that shook the heavens and let out angry roars. This is the moment of life and death. Fighting for the survival of our race, what is there to fear in death? Even if I die here, I will drag them down with me. Our Taotai clan will never admit defeat. Countless experts of the Taotai clan roared at the top of their lungs. The sound waves reverberated in the sky, shaking the wasteland. The heavens and earth were filled with surging murderous intent. The murderous intent turned into a blood-colored gale that whistled past. Many deacons and guards of the Taotai clan moved quickly, leading their clansmen to fight against the enemy. The Great Elder and the 2 elders had taken out their natal artifacts and were filled with murderous intent. The 3 of them had solemn expressions as they crazily accumulated divine power in their bodies, preparing for the final battle. At this moment the atmosphere was somber and oppressive to the extreme. In the sky not far away, Xiang and the 7 divine kings took the opportunity to adjust their breathing for a while before they drew their weapons. Xiang looked at the Taotai clan expressionlessly, and there was a flash of apology in the depths of his cold eyes. I'm sorry, the star-devouring grotto heaven is too tempting. I have to kill all of you to completely control this grotto heaven. Although we were once allies, don't blame me for being ruthless. If you want to blame someone, you can only blame your clan leader for being immersed in the glory of the past and being conceited, refusing to accept the cruel reality. Xiang repeated these words in his heart, but he did not say them out loud. After all, it was impossible for him to let the Taotai clan off. If you cut the weeds without removing the roots, they would grow again. The Taotai clan was the same as the Xianxia clan. They were both primordial ferocious beasts and the 7 noble clans of the demon clan. If they let the thousands of Taotai clan off today, they might make a comeback after a few thousand years. By then the Taotai clan's anger would sweep across the world. Not only would the Xianxia clan suffer, but the entire Star Source continent would be in chaos. Therefore they had to kill them. The Gale Hall, 3 Kings Temple and Shihi sect had the same thoughts as Xiang. Their forces were weaker than the Xianxia clan, so how would they dare to leave behind any future troubles? In the next moment Xiang raised his butcher's knife and shouted expressionlessly, "Spread out, kill." As his voice fell, he took the lead and charged into the Taotai clan's campsite. He waved his divine knife, creating afterimages that filled the sky as he released hundreds of laws and divine powers. The Right Guardian, Gale Hall Second Hall Master, and a few other supreme gods spread out and charged into the Taotai clan's campsite from all directions to start a massacre. This was naturally the most effective move. The 8 of them were all upper-level supreme gods and their abilities were outstanding. If they were to gather and fight the thousands of Taotai clan members head-on, even if they could win, they would have to buy time and pay a heavy price. However, if they were to spread out and fight on their own, they would be very flexible. The thousands of Taotai clan members had to be divided into 8 groups to deal with them separately, so their strength was greatly reduced. As the crimson light and 5-colored divine light covered the sky, hundreds of divine skill light shadows poured into the Taotai clan's campsite like a flood. Blade light and sword shadows, ice, fire and frost, ancient ferocious beasts, blades that could split heaven and earth. All kinds of divine light shadows lit up the sky. Bam bam bam. Rumble. Rumble. Boom. Crack. Hence an earth-shattering, deafening sound burst out, reverberating through the universe and shaking heaven and earth. The Taotai clan's campsite within a radius of 10,000 miles was instantly destroyed into ruins. Hundreds of houses and palaces were torn apart under the bombardment of the divine skill, turning into ruins, leaving behind dilapidated fences and broken walls. Hundreds of Taotai clan members were torn apart under the divine light, splashing out countless pieces and spraying blood all over the sky. There were roars of despair, angry curses and painful howls. However, they were all drowned out by the deafening sound. The Right Guardian, Gale Hall Second Hall Master, 3 Kings Temple's second leader, Shihi Sect's deputy sect leader, and the others were all invincible, massacring wantonly. Only Xianxia was stopped. He was the most powerful person, and the person who stopped him was naturally the most powerful person in the Taotai clan, the Grand Elder. In terms of age, seniority and strength, the Grand Elder was higher. If both sides were to fight one-on-one, the Grand Elder would definitely win. However, it was a pity that the Grand Elder did not have the divine weapon of the clan, and the primordial chaos spell fell into the hands of Ji Tianxing. However, Xianxia had the Xianxia old ancestor's indestructible golden body. When the indestructible golden body merged with his divine body, he had an indestructible body, and his defense was almost invincible. After exchanging a few blows with the Grand Elder, he stabilized his footing and gradually counterattacked, finally gaining the upper hand. On the other side, the remaining 2 elders of the Taotai clan were both intermediate god kings. Even if they were incomparably indignant and determined to die, it was useless. The Right Guardian of the Xianxia clan executed the technique of a 9th Heaven Realm god king and easily killed them. The outcome of this battle was destined from the beginning. This was a massacre. Chapter 3698. Since it was a massacre, the battle could not be considered a stalemate. The outcome could only be described as tragic. In less than an hour, the Taotai clan's campsite within a radius of 10,000 miles was blasted into ruins, and the ground was filled with deep pits and ravines. The palaces and buildings had turned into ashes, and the thousands of Taotai clan people had also turned into ashes. There were very few survivors. Those clansmen of the Taotai clan that didn't have the strength to resist yet were unwilling to die carried hearts filled with terror and despair as they fled in all directions, and they were extremely terrified. It was a pity that Xianxia and the rest had come with the intention of killing them all. They had already set up a divine formation around the campsite, covering a radius of 30,000 miles. Although it was just a simple formation, the upper divine kings could break it with some effort. It was more than enough to trap the ordinary Taotai clan people. In a short while, the second palace master of Jifeng, deputy sect master of Shihi, and the rest had killed all the remaining Taotai clan people. Only the battlefield above the ruins still had 3 figures fighting fiercely. On one side was the Supreme Elder, who was also the last remaining life of the Taotai clan. On the other side was the sinister and ruthless Xianxia and his assistant, the Right Protector. The other 6 divine kings were busy killing the remaining Taotai clan people, but the Right Guardian was not interested. He loyally assisted Xianxia to kill the Supreme Elder as soon as possible. The battle had already come to an end. The Supreme Elder's body was badly mutilated, and he had lost an arm or a leg. He was extremely miserable. No matter how strong his divine power and foundation was, He was now like a candle in the wind, about to be extinguished. The second palace master of Jifeng and the second leader of Three Kings Temple also shouted and joined the battle, joining forces to besiege the Supreme Elder. The old man who was covered in bloodstains finally died on the spot with his body crushed to pieces. His body turned into a bloody mist, sprinkling in the ruins and raising a monstrous smell of blood. The godhead was also blasted into pieces, scattering in the ruins and ravines. The tragic battle ended. Xianxia also suffered some minor injuries, but it was nothing serious. It was just that his divine power was greatly depleted and he was rather tired. After he stopped, he took out a divine elixir and consumed it to recover his divine power. As a big shot, he naturally disdained to do such trivial things as cleaning up the battlefield and searching for the remaining Taotai clan people. Of course, this was done by Vice Sect Master Shi He and the profound Yang Palace's great protector. The reason why these people disregarded their identities and became coolies to clean up the battlefield was because they had selfish motives. After all, after the Taotai clan's camp was destroyed, many big and small treasure vaults were revealed. They were all hidden deep underground. That was the personal treasury of the Taotai clan's deacons and elders, which stored a huge amount of resources and treasures. In addition, the corpses, relics, and space rings on the battlefield were also a considerable amount of wealth. Since the Taotai clan had already been annihilated, they naturally began to plunder the wealth. The Right Protector did not stay by Xianxia's side, but she did not clean up the battlefield and search for the treasuries and spatial rings. He just rummaged through the ruins for a while and found 16 godhead fragments. After piecing them together, he sent them to Xianxia. This was the Grand Elder's godhead fragment. Xianxia nodded with satisfaction and put the quintessence fragments into his bag. Although he didn't have Ji Tianxing's devouring divine ability, he couldn't absorb the Grand Supreme Elder's power. However, he was proficient in the soul-searching technique and would definitely be able to find a lot of useful information from the Grand Supreme Elder's Godhead fragment. This would be of great help to him when he controlled the star-devouring grotto heaven in the future. Everyone was a higher god king, so of course they did things cleanly. In just an hour, the Taotai clan's camp, which was now a battlefield in ruins, was cleaned up by the few god kings. Not to mention the treasure vaults that were half hidden in the pits and ravines. Even the space rings that were scattered in the sand had been completely looted by them. The few god kings were very satisfied, and their hearts were filled with anticipation and enthusiasm. As a result, they forgot about some of their injuries and didn't feel tired. Clan leader Xianxia, the battlefield is cleaned up. We should go and excavate the mineral veins. Although this was nonsense, the second palace master of Gale still took the initiative to say it, intending to ask for Xianxia's instructions. Everyone knew that the obstacles had been cleared, and now it was time to split the spoils. And at this juncture, it was very likely to be the beginning of internal strife. The five forces each had their own ulterior motives and no one could trust anyone. Gale Hall and Three Kings Temple only had one god king here, so they were naturally the weakest. Of course, they were more careful. Not to curry favor with Xianxia, but at least they could ascertain his attitude. Fortunately, Xianxia did not show any signs of flaring up, as if he had no thoughts of internal strife or eliminating dissidents at all. He stood up, nodded, and said, "Everyone has worked hard. The fighting just now was all for the sake of the harvest now. North of these ruins is the core hinterland of the star-devouring grotto heaven. 80% of the mineral veins are gathered here. In a while, everyone will split up and excavate the mineral veins on your own. How much you can plunder will all depend on your ability." Finished speaking, Xianxia even revealed a trace of a gentle smile. Even though the god kings of the four forces did not quite believe that Xianxia was so kind. But when Xianxia said so, everyone showed expressions of relief, and they all saluted and praised. It was nothing more than praising Xianxia for being a man of his word and being a person of virtue and prestige. But in the hearts of the few god kings, they became even more vigilant. Because Xianxia wanted everyone to split up and excavate on their own. Everyone could not help but have the same thought in their minds. Could it be that Xianxia wants us to split up and then kill us one by one so that he can devour the star-devouring grotto heaven alone? It must be so. There's no way someone as vicious as him would allow us to plunder his resources. Thinking so, the few god kings secretly communicated with their eyes and quickly understood each other's meaning. Later, when plundering the resources, they would definitely unite and monitor Xianxia. They would rather dig less mineral veins than fall into Xueshang's trap. Zhoosh. Xueshang did not waste any time. He got up and stepped into the sky, flying north. The right protector was silent and followed closely behind him. He secretly asked through voice transmission, "Patriarch, are we really going to give up all those resources?" Xueshang did not turn his head. He maintained his flying posture and replied through voice transmission, "Of course not. How can I give up the fat meat that is in my hands? It's just that compared to the starry cliff in the depths of the star-devouring grotto heaven, the mineral veins and resources underground are nothing." Starry cliff? The right protector was a little puzzled and revealed a puzzled expression. Xueshang patiently explained, "The divine array that protects the star-devouring grotto heaven as well as the many mechanisms and arrays in the grotto heaven are all related to the starry cliff. The lone peak at the edge of the grotto heaven is the center of the array of the star-devouring grotto heaven. If you want to control the star-devouring grotto heaven, you must first control the starry cliff. Later you will follow me to the starry cliff. When we join forces to take down the starry cliff, we will deal with those guys." The right protector suddenly understood and hurriedly replied through voice transmission, "This subordinate obeys." Chapter 3699. Xueshang and the right guardian flew in front, crossing 1,000 miles with each step. The 6 god kings of the 4 forces followed behind, maintaining a distance from each other but not too far apart. This distance was very subtle. It did not appear to be close, but it also ensured that they could take care of each other in the event of an emergency. Not long after, everyone flew 20,000 miles. According to common sense, there should be a large amount of mineral resources hidden underground and in the barren mountains from here onwards. However, Xueshang, who was flying in front, suddenly had a drastic change in expression and stopped in the sky. How could this be? Xueshang looked down at the ground and the surrounding barren mountains, frowning. His face was as cold as ice and his eyes flashed with frightening coldness. The right guardian, who had always been expressionless, could not help but reveal a stunned expression. He was angry and puzzled. The 6 god kings of the 4 forces realized that the situation was not right, and hurriedly followed. When they saw the situation in the barren plains and barren mountains below, their expressions changed drastically and they cried out in alarm. "Damn it! How could it be like this? There should be many mineral veins here, but they have all been excavated? It must be the people of the Taotai clan who dug those mineral veins in advance." Without a doubt. The ground and barren mountains below everyone's feet were filled with gullies, huge cracks and holes. The mineral veins that should have been hidden underground had all disappeared without a trace. It could not be helped, this was all done by God King Luo. His methods were simple and crude, and the traces he left behind were also very crude, causing the ground to be in a state of devastation. However, he was not as meticulous as Ji Tianxing. Although he would also leave behind holes and cracks, at least they were much lighter. However, the person who did the most meticulous work was the rock giant Yank. In Ji Tianxing's words, this guy was like the son of the earth and the underground was almost his home. The places where he had dug the mineral veins did not have any abnormalities on the surface, but there were huge holes hidden underground. It was unknown what method he used to prevent the ground from shattering and collapsing those holes that stretched for hundreds of miles. The 8 god kings stood in the sky, and their faces were very gloomy, and their eyes were filled with anger. The atmosphere was rather gloomy. After a while, Xueshang said expressionlessly, "It was most likely done by the Taotai clan, but they would not destroy their own foundation, and it is even more impossible for them to dig it all out. Don't worry, let's continue heading north." Thus, the 8 deity kings went on their way again, exploring the depths of the grotto heaven. As the group ventured deeper, they discovered huge pits and ravines on the ground and barren mountains every few thousand miles. Some of the pits and ravines were very ugly and some looked very light, but the underground veins were indeed gone. The strangest thing was that there were many places that looked normal. However, when everyone used their divine senses to scan the area, they discovered that there was a huge hole in the ground. What infuriated them even more was that when they released their divine senses to cover a radius of 70,000 to 80,000 miles, the scene they saw was still the same. Within a radius of 80,000 miles, there were over 100 pits, abysses and ravines. Countless lands were shattered and mountains collapsed. Every collapse and hole meant that a mine had been excavated. Xueshang's eyes suddenly turned dark red as if they were filled with blood. His entire body ignited with blood-red flames. The other god kings weren't any better. All of them had savage expressions and were unable to restrain their rage, and they surged with killing intent. Bastard! Who did this? Xueshang's eyes widened in anger as he cursed loudly. The other god kings were also filled with anger as they looked at the open field and cursed. Goddamn thief, he actually made us draw water with a bamboo basket. We worked hard for several days, but we didn't expect that someone would intercept us. Just as we were about to succeed, the fruit was picked by someone. What the hell is this? *CK him. Don't let me find out who did it or I'll definitely turn him into ashes. Although they didn't know who the opponent was, it didn't stop the god kings from cursing the heavens and the earth to vent their anger. After a long time, when everyone's emotions stabilized, they quieted down. Xueshang rubbed his eyebrows and said thoughtfully, "Along the way, just from what we can detect, there are over 160 mines that have been excavated. There must be many more mineral veins in this vast wasteland, and they must have already been excavated. There are over 200 mines, 80% of the resources in the star-devouring grotto heaven. Who did this?" No matter how astute Xueshang was, he felt a headache at this moment as he couldn't figure out the reason. The profound Yang Palace's great guardian said angrily, "The entrance to the star-devouring grotto heaven has always been strictly guarded. Even we can't break in. Other than the Taotai clan, who else would do such a thing?" The second leader of the Three Kings Temple nodded in agreement and said, "Excavating over 200 mines, what a huge movement this is. If the Taotai clan didn't do it, I'm afraid they would have already fought and suffered heavy casualties." Although the other god kings didn't express their opinions, they also agreed with this statement. After all, this explanation was more reasonable. But Xueshang still couldn't figure it out. He frowned and asked, "Logically speaking, this explanation is the most reasonable. But I still think that it's not necessary at all. The Taotai clan planned to seal the star-devouring grotto heaven and recuperate for 10,000 years. There's no reason for them to excavate all the mines. What's more, after they excavated the mines, where did they hide them? That's over 200 hills worth tens of trillions of resources. Indeed, over 200 hill-like mines, even if they were purified into pure divine stones, could also pile up into a towering mountain range. But everyone had already turned the Taotai clan's camp upside down and still couldn't find where the massive amount of divine stones were hidden. Thinking of this, the second palace master of Gale suddenly thought of something and said subconsciously, "Could it be that the Taotai clan's powerhouses put all those mines into their spatial rings?" Suddenly hearing this sentence, the other god kings were all shocked, and their gazes gathered on Xueshang. Because after the Grand Elder was killed, the spatial ring and divine spark fragments were all taken by Xueshang. Xueshang didn't take any of the other people's rings or the underground treasure vault, only the Grand Elder's relics. If the shocking wealth of tens of trillions was really put into the spatial ring, then it must be in Xueshang's hands. Xueshang was also stunned for a moment. He instantly narrowed his eyes, and a terrifying murderous intent burst out from his body. Realizing that he had stood out, the second palace master of Gale immediately shrunk his neck, and an apologetic look flashed across his eyes. The other 5 god kings all subconsciously accumulated divine power to prevent Xueshang from suddenly attacking and killing people on the spot. However, Xueshang quickly restrained his murderous intent and took out a simple black thumb ring. He waved it at everyone and said with a magnanimous expression, "It's not with me." That black thumb ring was the Grand Elder's spatial ring. After the Grand Elder passed away, the black thumb ring became an ownerless item. Xueshang opened the restriction again, allowing everyone's divine consciousness to pry into the